The Nigeria Hub welcomes you warmly. I am Dr. Eleanor Nwadinobi. I'm the Senior Advisor of the Nigeria Resource and Support Hub. I'm also the International President of the Medical Women's International Association, and I will be chairing the panel events today. I am pleased to say that we do have with us in the room a sign language interpreter, and online we have a captioner. I wear another hat as the International President of the Medical Women's International Association. The Resource and Support Hub, RSH, is a Foreign and Commonwealth Development Organization program, FCDO, formerly known as DFID, supporting organizations in the aid sector to strengthen their policy and practice in safeguarding, and in particular, sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment. RSH has consortium partners, and these include Social Development Direct, ICVA, which is a global NGO network working on effective humanitarian action. Amongst our consortium partners, we have Site Savers. We also have TEDESOM and Clear Global. I'll tell you a little about our approach. When you realize that safeguarding, first of all, is a journey, it's a new and emerging area born out of need, and something I refer to as building the aircraft as it takes off, because we are all on the learning journey and we are adapting and being flexible as we go along the journey. And we are all at different parts of the journey. Our approach is very simple. It's an evidence-informed approach whereby the program was built on account, first of all, of a country assessment. We are committed to our primary beneficiaries. And who are our primary beneficiaries? Less resource CSOs. The unusual suspects. We have the virtual hub and we have our face-to-face activities. You're going to be hearing so much more from our presenters. Another approach of RSH, the Nigeria Hub, is one of co-creation, where through consultation, the national voices are heard and amplified. RSH has the inclusion of persons with disabilities, organizations of persons with disabilities, as cross-cutting, and we are very intentional in engaging with OPDs. in the spirit of nothing for us without us. Our program over the past 2 years has been adaptive, and we've expanded our user base to include government. I recognize in the room the presence of the lead of the at-risk children's program outside, coming from the Vice President's office. We have expanded our user base to include the private sector. We've also expanded our user base to include networks. And you'll be hearing a lot about that in the course of our meeting today. We are also working across the development and the humanitarian sectors. We do have a lineup of well-credentialed and erudite panelists with us today. I want to acknowledge that the Nigeria RSH team are here. We have Oluchi Ihedoro with us here. She's the National Associate.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
We have Sylvia Wokowu, and she is our communications expert. Are you in the camera? There you are. Straight forward, Nkiru Ezife, and she's the administrative assistant.
Hello, everyone.
That is our small but mighty Nigeria team. As we move along the course of the day, you will be meeting also our amazing global team. So with those few words of welcome, let's launch straight into the program this morning. And I will start right at the beginning. I shall start right at the start by introducing to you our team leader. The team leader for the RSH program is Emma Wokowu. She has over 10 years of experience designing, managing, and implementing social development projects for bilateral and multilateral donors. Emma brings a wide range of project delivery experience, working and living in Nigeria. In fact, she's an Omo-Eko, a Lagos lady. She's also worked in Sierra Leone and Malawi. It is with great pleasure that I hand over the microphone to Emma, who is joining us online from London, to introduce the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub, otherwise known as RSH. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eleanor, for the very warm welcome. And very sorry that I can't be there in Abuja with you. I'm still in London, but I'm looking on, wishing I was there with you all. So I'm there in spirit rather than in person. A warm welcome to everyone, and thanks so much for joining. I hope that everyone has been involved with the Resource and Support Hub in Nigeria. And I'm really looking forward to the session today and to hear from people who have been involved and to hear stories of change, to hear of people's journeys, and to hear about the challenges, because safeguarding, you know, it's everyone's role to play. And every month and every year, we need to make sure that we are considering, you know, new risks to our organization. So thank you very much to everyone for joining. We have people from a global perspective, people from the region on the call, as well as colleagues within Nigeria. And I hope that everyone will be able to get what they need out of this session, and to stay in touch with the Resource and Support Hub going forward. I wanted to start by saying really why the Nigeria Hub was set up for RSH. RSH started in 2019, and the aim, as Dr. Eleanor said, is to support organisations build their capacity on safeguarding. We know that safeguarding is an issue which doesn't escape any organisation, and every organisation needs to have, you know, policies, formal measures in place. But what RSH is here to do is also to challenge challenging aspects such as the behaviours, the cultures, and to deep dive into issues which organisations, you know, don't have the kind of support to do so. So Nigeria was selected as one of our 8 hubs globally in 2019. And the hub was selected because we recognise that there are a lot of civil society organisations. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of organisations delivering across Nigeria. And I mean, I know that the complexities of Nigeria, the different areas, the states, the governance mechanisms. So the Nigeria Hub was really set up to work across the whole country, to work across the north, the south, the east, the central belt, each area to tackle, you know, how do we mitigate against safeguarding risks in each of those specific areas. And every organisation has come with their own experiences and their own challenges. And we've tried to bring that voice of the organisations to the forefront. I did just want to recognise our colleagues in Nigeria who have taken the hub from strength to strength. The hub was initially led by Oge, who was on the call, and was then handed over to Oluchi, who will be with you now. Also to Dr. Eleanor, who has supported in the role of senior advisor. And of course, thanks to Sylvia and Nkiru as well for their kind of dedicated support on making everything run, on getting things on the website, and making sure that the hub has really acted in the best interest of organisations. We've also worked with a number of consultants across Nigeria and more broadly in the region. And I'd just like to recognise their inputs as well, because this is what has made RSH in Nigeria such a huge success in supporting organisations. We've worked with a lot of different approaches to working with organisations, and I'm looking forward to hearing, you know, some of them which have worked, others which have been more challenging, and really looking at what works in the context of Nigeria. That's why we have our team on the ground. That's why they're here to kind of listen and respond to what is needed. And we hope that we've been able to support organisations to seek new funding, to be stronger on the ground in safeguarding, and also to mitigate risks. So we have a number of lessons learned from our Nigeria hub, and I hope that we will cover some of these today. So I'll stop there. I hope that everyone enjoys today and gets a lot out of it. The RSH programme will continue to run, and the resources will still be available online. So I hope that everyone who is on the call will continue to be engaged with the Resource and Support Hub, remain engaged on different kind of online platform activities, And please do reach out if you have any questions for us. So with that in mind, I'll hand back to Dr. Eleanor as our chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Emma. For our online team, you will see the picture moving slightly. That's so that the camera can capture those who are speaking. I do apologize if there's a slight echo. I've tried to stay as far away from the speaker as possible. Next, we have Oge Chukwudozie. Oge is the Global Safeguarding Advisor. Oge was formerly with the Nigeria RSH team as the national advisor. Like Emma said, one of the founding team members of the Nigeria Hub. It is with great delight that I invite Oge to tell us more about learning from the RSH organizational culture project that was piloted here in Nigeria. Over to you, Oge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eleanor. I'm really glad to be able to witness this day, even though I'm not there in person, knowing how RSH Nigerian Hub started and the impact that really has been made. Yes, so I appreciate everyone. I'll be sharing a bit about the organizational culture, which was one of the projects, our little programs to build capacity that RSH Nigerian Hub did. As you're all aware, like RSH has been said by Dr. Eleanor and Emma, RSH is about supporting smaller civil society organizations to actually strengthen their systems. Next slide, please. So basically, you know that safeguarding cannot be effective. You cannot say you are keeping people safe when your organization has a negative organizational culture. And what is organizational culture, you might say? Bond, described Bond, which is a UK network, described it as the personality of the organization. So an organization having a personality like a human being, the way we do things around here, like we know in Nigeria, you will hear like, this is how we do it, this is how so even in different places, there is that culture of like, this is how we do it. So it encompasses the underlying values, beliefs, and code of practice that makes an organization what it is. It can be seen through behavior, can be seen through language, customs, rules, or group interaction and habits. So basically how the organization works, things that happen in the organization and how people interact and relate. So that is the organizational culture. That is what a culture is. Culture, like when we are learning about culture in social studies, then, we are taught that culture is the way of life of a person or of a people. So in this organization, culture is the way of life. So how does this culture now apply to safeguarding? When the culture is safe, is supportive, then when there is the ability of learning, when there is the learning culture, so even when there are errors or challenges, it's about learning rather than a blame culture. When there is a blame culture, then people are stifled, and even when there is not a safeguarding concern, they might not be willing or able to report because their voices maybe has not been heard before. So why would they want to raise this concern when, they know that they will just be shut down. Next slide, please. So in terms of having these culture projects, we actually started with the first basics, the first mentoring program that we did, which was just generally on safeguarding across different thematic areas. And then we noticed that like across all the indicators, there were steady progress by different organizations that participated in that. However, for governance and culture and leadership, there really wasn't much of a change because people didn't really know what to do or what the change to make in that part of the indicator. So because of that, we now designed this specific projects to really target on helping organizations to look inwards and improve their culture. So we have this that we call RSH Culture Framework. It was actually adapted from the gender framework. And this here you have 4 quadrants. From the right, top right, you will see resources. And resources, so this is actually about the individual. This is about the organization. The resources, talking about resources for safeguarding, for example, time for staff to integrate safeguarding practices into their work. So that means, like the staff have the time to do safeguarding work. There are human resources, there's focal points and others that are needed. There are enough trainings and capacity building on safeguarding. There are regular discussions in team meetings and inclusion of safeguarding in program performance. So these are like, resources, talking about human resources, talking about financial resources. So when you have this, yes, so that is it's an aspect of safeguarding, it's required, yes, it's important. And then you also have the lower right, formal rules and policies. So formal rules and policies, you're talking about safeguarding policy, you're talking about code of conduct, you're talking about policy on diversity and inclusion, guidelines on recruitment and safe programming, etc. So all documented policy or manual or guidance that an organization has. So this is about, that. So this quadrant is about that. So this first and second quadrant or to the right is about the organization. So what does the organization have? And most times organizations actually focus on these right quadrants, these 2 right quadrants on resources, because yes, you want to have the money, and you also want to engage staff that will do the work, yes. And you also like have rules, yes. But let's look at the left quadrant. You have consciousness and capabilities. So here now, about the individual. Leadership behaviors for safeguarding. So what is the behavior? How is the leadership behaving towards safeguarding? Safe space for different groups of staff to share experiences on safeguarding, staff treating each other and communities with respect. So these are now like the consciousness, the capabilities that are available, when staff do, the positive things. So now this is at the individual level. The right was about the organization. So now this is about the individual. And then you also have the lower left quadrants, informal norms and practices. So the inclusive work culture, decentralized decision-making, learning organization, power sharing. So these, like the informal norms. So now when you now think about it, you see that most times organizations focus on resources and policies, but not so much as the consciousness, and the informal norms. Because you all agree with me that sometimes you might have a policy, that says, oh yes, you are accountable, your values are that you are accountable, and that you are diverse, and want to ensure that there is diversity and inclusion in your organization, and that all is respected and all that. But when it really comes to practice, you see that that is not being practiced. It's just on paper or just in the laptop. So how do we transition from just having these concrete things? They are important, but how do we transition from having these concrete things towards the parts that are on the left? So these parts are on the left are more intangible, like soft skills. It's not really what you can pin on, like, for policy, you can say, yes, see the policy I have. For financial, you can easily, provide evidence, see the financial resources I have, see the staff I have. But when it comes to behavior, how people really act out, or how people act out, how they behave, or the attitudes they have, the norms, the norms, the culture in that organization. It might say people are free to speak out, but when in reality they know that once they speak out, they will be pressurized or discriminated against, then you know that they will not really speak out, even though when the policy says so. So that's why, so looking at this, we wanted to really emphasize, for these culture projects, to emphasize on the lower left quadrants of informal norms and practices, to help organizations to really be able to reflect inwards, to see what their norms and practices are. As opposed, and then, like when we're having these engagements, lots of information came out where people were able to, like, reflect and say, oh, actually, I didn't realize, executive directors are like, oh, I didn't realize, most times in my organization, people, because I'm still in the office, people still want to stay back in the office, even though they are done with their work for the day and need to close. But because I'm there, they just want to continue to stay because they feel that they shouldn't go, but now they are now reflecting. So during one of our peer exchange workshops, they reflected and said, oh, okay, I'm really going to go and correct this. We want a situation, we want an organization that people are not pressured to do, something beyond what they should do, or something just because the executive director is there, they still need to stay back, even after their working hours, just so that not to appear rude, our Nigerian context. So that's what we focused on, because the first mentoring session really was more around like the resources and the formal rules. These are important because you cannot proceed if you don't have these formal rules in place. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Now, what process did we now use to run this mentoring program, the Safe Organizational Culture Mentoring Program? Yeah, I see that this thing is quite small. So, but basically the organizations did a mini assessment of themselves. So they provided information on history, focus and priorities, and readiness for change. So because we made a call to those who were part of the first mentoring session. So out of all the about over 40 organizations that participated in the first mentoring session, we needed to like focus on a few to really, because this is a pilot and like a research, to really see how things will change, to support them to see the change. So, and then with this, there was the organizational questionnaire and mentor support. So mentors were assigned to organizations, 10 organizations were selected, mentors were assigned, and a questionnaire was given for them to help put out this information about the organization, and then to also indicate interest, because that commitment is essential. And then the next was the organization identify existing culture and visions for change. So so after that measuring, after they've assessed themselves, like they've measured themselves, we have also, a measuring tool. All this information, all these tools and templates are available on our online hub, and they will be shared with this video or with the link, with the webinar link later on. So yeah, with the measuring tool, so they identified the areas that they want to actually focus on, and they identified their vision for change. What vision do they have for change? And then we now have peer exchange workshops. So peer exchange workshops, brought together the executive leaders. We focus on leadership, so executive directors or senior members of the organization, senior management team of the organization. Some of the organizations also even brought in representatives from the board. And then so with the peer exchange workshop, the organizations came together. So it provided opportunity for them to share and learn. So like for visions for change, for the priority actions, they each discuss for each of the peer exchange workshops, they discuss, they share, and some will go back and say, oh, okay, I want to actually adapt what this organization A is doing in the organization to mine, So that helps to foster learning. And this peer workshop was happening bi-monthly. The project was for 6 months. So it was bi-monthly, at least, to bring them together. We had face-to-face events as well as one online meeting. So any way to bring people together, we found it that is really very important. And then organizations prioritize actions that can contribute to change. And so once this is identified, the priority actions are identified, they now go back. We had that first peer workshop just to bring them together to introduce the project and what the aim was. And then they now went back, work with their mentors. Mentors were paired with them. So the mentors were just to guide the organizations in what they do. So after that, so they work for like 2 months and then come back for another exchange workshop to share learning and share progress. And we also used it as a means of also raising awareness on key informations, like on leadership, like on different aspects to really foster the change they want to see. How to have even a safe space, what a safe space is, leadership skills and capacity. And then so that's like what was done over time. And then organizations, exchange practice and learnings to continue to build on success and challenges. And then, with that, we now came to the end. So that was like the process of that we used, the steps we used for the organizational culture mentoring program. Let's have the next slide, please. Now, for organizations that want to really change their culture, what are the steps? So from this pilot that we did, we identified some key steps that are essential. The first is that, safeguarding basics need to be in place. And when I say safeguarding basics, what do I mean? Having the basic structure, like policies, it's important. You have your policy, you have your code of conduct, you make sure that people are trained, you have your staff are trained, staff, not only paid staff volunteers, community members, need to also be sensitized to know what they should expect and what they should not expect from your staff and volunteers. Even your contractors, consultants, anybody that comes in contact with the organization or represents the organization in any way. If you're also working with partners, your partners, so anyone that is associated with the organization should be able to know your stand around safeguarding. So that is having reporting mechanisms in place. So like all those are key. So it's important to have those basics in place. And then the next, is now about improving your conscious capability and informal norms and practices, just like I mentioned earlier, the culture framework that we used. And what are these informal norms and practices? So some of, based on the measuring tool that we have, you have values, so what is the value of your organization? And do your staff really know the values? So there will have to be values, positive values in place, one. Secondly, staff and everyone, related with the organization, in contact with the organization, needs to know what these values are. And then thirdly, they need to now act it out. So that is, that about values. Then another pillar is leadership. How do, because we continue saying it that safeguarding cannot work without leadership. And for organizational culture, that it starts with leadership. The leadership needs to exhibit positive behavior, in line with what they want to see. For leadership, do they model the positive behavior that they really want to see? How are they modeling it? Are they shutting down everybody? Or are they building a learning organization? Sometimes we do want to play the blame game. So an organization where the leadership is only about blaming, you see that people will become defensive, and even when things go wrong, nobody will want to say because they don't want to be to be blamed. But when you apply a learning approach, so that learning approach is like, okay, so why did this happen? And you want to learn from it so that doesn't happen again. And that actually can be empowering. And we also provide, if the leader is also exhibiting a situation where he or she listens to everyone, listens, and even in meetings and in different interactions, encourages staff to air their views, then people will be comfortable, people will be motivated. During some of our peer workshops, we are hearing how the leader was telling how he was able to involve other people or his staff to write proposals. And for the staff, it was actually motivating because they feel, oh, they are now part of this. They feel like they are now really part of the organization. A staff can be in the organization working, but not really feel part of it. So, but with that action, he was sharing that, yes, the staff feel, motivated because of course the necessary support is also provided. And then, so they are all working towards the betterment of that organization. So having the leadership really model positive behavior that supports staff, that motivates staff, that empowers, because again, remember that, all that we're doing, remember safeguarding is about the power dynamics, so abuse of power, it's from the more powerful, be it, someone who is in the position of authority or someone who has other characteristics, maybe education, maybe finances, maybe, whatever socioeconomic status, what. So, but we want to now empower, we want to, shift the power, empower those that are lesser on, the vulnerable, so the leadership need to really model this, to really share, some of his or her power to others, so that others will also feel empowered and motivated to actually speak up. And then behavior. So these things now across different people in the organization, the behavior need to be exhibited, so exhibiting this positive behavior and challenging some decisions, that are not appropriate or that does not fit in. Because when staff now understand the policy, understand the values, understand, things about the organization, when there is a decision or an action that goes contrary to what is on the policy, then, staff, when staff challenge that, you see that, progress really has been made. And then that challenging is not in the negative light, but rather so that this organization will continue to learn and improve. And then, finally, you have staff as change agents, whether even when they're still there, when they've gone out, we've had people, talk about their past organizations and really promote these organizations. So staff as change agents, staff will now be like as ambassadors to this particular organization. All right, so the next is about identifying and training staff safeguarding champions and change agents. So of course, these change agents that we've identified, you need to train them, you need to provide them with the specific support that they need. Sorry, please let me. So you need to train them. Most times when NGO leadership just identify a safeguarding focal person, just to tick the box and say, oh, we've identified we have a safeguarding focal person. It doesn't end that way. But training, giving this person all the necessary skills that they need to do the job and supporting, such a person. And then from our experience, the peer exchange workshops was really amazing, because it provided opportunity for organizations to come together to share. And then that sharing, people listen and learn from what others are sharing. They learn from what others are sharing. They learn from what is happening in that organization and can now improve theirs, when there is need, so it's about sharing and learning, and, we'll continue. So that the peer exchange workshops we also found was, quite helpful. And then identifying and measuring priority actions. So that's the key. So I have your priority, identify your priority actions, that you want to work on. So, and then now continue on the journey of really gradually putting in practice steps and activities and things that are needed really to be able to help you achieve the action that we've identified. Next slide, please. All right, so for some of our lessons, our recommendations that we'll make. I've said it before, we're saying it again, that senior management and leadership commitment is essential, and it is important that they lead by example. It's very much essential. Safeguarding cannot work without the leadership commitment. Leaders need to be able to build an organization that really portrays a positive and welcoming, and ultimately like a safe space. Let this organization be a safe space. Let organization be a place where people will come in, and as staff are coming into work, they are feeling motivated, they are happy, they are not like anxious and grumbling about the work, but they really feel part of this and feel committed to the work. So it's the leadership really needs to, the management needs to really do this. So it's important that they do it. It's important. Safeguarding cannot, because if the leader say is the one that actually goes against safeguarding practices, if the leader is the perpetrator, then what are we talking about in this organization? If the leader is the abuser and is the one that will always call names and and then this organization is not safe, then what are we talking about? So it's important that the leaders will lead by example. Peer exchange workshops provide motivation for management to engage and reflect on behavior on behavior if change is to be achieved. So for this, like I said, we actually focus on the executive directors or top members of senior management team, really, so 2 persons per organizations were identified, and some organizations even had people from their board representing them. So when this group of people, these top managements of different organizations come together, they share and reflect, and then behavior change can now be achieved, and it's a way of supporting and motivating each other. Rewarding positive behavior is also important. We've realized, so when staff do the right thing, to motivate them, this might even just be simple appreciation in your monthly or your weekly meeting, whatever, or your program meeting, whatever form of meeting, you appreciate staff that to see. And then during performance review, when that is also being done, the supervisor of the staff should be able to, say positive things, about what this staff has done. So when there is such rewarding of positive behavior, then it encourages people to do more. And then finally, just to also say that funding is important in implementing safeguarding activities. Like for this pilot program, we supported the organizations a bit with little funds to help them in running through the activities that they implement. So it's important that funding, because for most of the small organizations, the funding is really just maybe specific to particular activity. Is project tied, is activity tied. So, and sometimes when they didn't budget on some donors, maybe they don't accept line item for safeguarding. So when they don't budget for safeguarding, you see that it will be difficult. So, but it's important. So donors really and other funders should really be able to accept some percentage or some line budget items for to support safeguarding, because it's important really to implement safeguarding activities, and funding is essential, is part of it. All right, next slide. All right, so here we have just helpful resources on organizational culture. There are lots more, and these also, the links will be shared, like I've mentioned earlier, when this Zoom link is shared, when it is eventually published and shared out on our hub. All right, so that will be that. Thank you very much for listening. And then on the other part of it, it's about appreciating our partnerships in our strategic partners and the other CSOs that we've worked with. During the course of the Nigerian Resource and Support Hub, we've engaged with different partners and networks and government agencies, just like Dr. Eleanor mentioned. And the first one I really want to appreciate is our National Expert Board. Our NEB has really been amazing, and these are people, the NEB is made up of, people in different parts, so working in this sector, and then even government representative. We had a representative from Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, and other in academia as well, so, and the NEB, we meet quarterly, and they help to direct, then they will give suggestions, they will, brainstorm on how to really progress with the work we are doing. And even though our work was primarily online, but, they encouraged in terms of how we can also, look at different options to really see things moving forward. So I really appreciate our NEB members. It was chaired by Lola. I think Lola is in the room. So thank you very much, our NEB. We couldn't have really done as much as we achieved in the Nigerian hub without the support and guidance of the NEB. Okay. And our next strategic partner.
Before you continue, can I interrupt very briefly before you continue with your recognitions? Just to thank you, especially for your presentation on the organizational culture, telling us how to walk the talk. In fact, when you said, this is how we do it, I almost got up to dance. This is how we do it. Yes, you were able to tell us that we should lead by example. Before Oge continues with recognitions, there's a Yoruba proverb that says, do not shave my head in my absence. And I did that for FCDO. David Ukabu is here. He's the head of the sub-national team and the safeguarding champion of FCDO. He's a critical friend of RSH. In fact, so much so that on his signature, there's a safeguarding message, a tagline, and the signature points you to how you can report through an email. I would like to ask David to just give us a few words of goodwill as he may have to step out for a crucial meeting. Thank you for your patience, Oge.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. And Oge, sorry for interrupting your session. I do sincerely apologize. Good morning.
No problem, it's fine. You're welcome, David.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Oge, for this opportunity and for everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to be here. I came to learn. I didn't know I was going to be asked to speak or say anything. Because I think safeguarding is a learning journey for me. It's something you keep learning and learning and learning because it's quite big, it's quite wide, it's quite broad. Like Eleanor said, I am the safeguarding lead for FCDO Nigeria, and we have about 20 champions within the organization because it's a big organization, and we have to ensure that we are also walking the talk of the message we're also preaching outside and also walking through resource support hub to try and preach to our partners, to our downstream partners, NGOs, CSOs, even to government partners as well. So it's a pleasure to be here, and on behalf of the High Commissioner, Katrina Lang, for British High Commission here in Nigeria, as well as the Development Director, Chris Pycroft. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the Nigeria Resource Support Hub for the good work you are doing. I know it's not easy. They say every good thing must come to an end. But even be that as it may, I do not know that we're also trying to see how we can extend the work of resource support hub, but it's still in the early stage of discussions. In fact, the meeting I'm going off for now in the next few minutes is still on the same issue, reaching out to the senior responsible owners in UK about how we can work out that modalities and arrangements. So it's something we value your work and would like to see it continue and bed down a bit more. But it's also important to flag to all other partners here that we need everybody to sit up. Safeguarding is a huge issue that must be tackled in the country, in our different organizations, in society. One of the areas, I know I've mentioned it a bit to her, and I look forward to seeing Resource Support Hub doing some work in that area, is around the tertiary institutions, which also has huge challenges around safeguarding against sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment. So it would be great to also see what interventions you can do in that area to create that awareness and also to change the behavior pattern. Like what we talked about, the culture, bringing about a culture that promotes safety, a safe space and a safe environment everywhere we are, in our organizations, at home, in schools, in everywhere we find ourselves. So we begin to value ourselves and value the need to keep each other safe. So once again, I would like to say a huge thank you, and please do excuse me to run off, and I'll be back again to join you. Please, thank you, and I would like to learn more. Thank you very much.
You see why I call him a critical friend. So as you go up to that meeting, I know that you will speak with that great voice of advocacy for RSH. Okay, now you understand why I interrupted you briefly. Please do go ahead, okay? And thank you for being so gracious.
Of course. Yeah, David has always been a great supporter of Nigerian Hub, and we are glad to have someone like that on FCDO team supporting and championing safeguarding. All right. Okay. So yeah, still progressing with the appreciation. The next that I also want to appreciate is Nigerian network of NGOs. I hope they are represented. But Nigerian network of NGOs, you know, got to know about RSH Nigeria from Bond, from the UK. They saw they are registered subscribers to Bond newsletter, and then from one of the newsletters they saw something about RSH, and they're like, oh, RSH in Nigeria, what's this? And then that's how they reached out, and we really formed a strategic partnership where we have you know, then we are conducting tailored webinars for their network members, because Nigerian network of NGOs has a lot of CSOs registered in the network. So we use that opportunity to actually you know, train their members on different aspects of safeguarding. So we appreciate the NNGO, triple NGO, as you know they call themselves. All right, and then Women in Humanitarian Response in Nigeria is yet another network that we also able to reach out to the members. The leadership and the commitment of Mimido, you know, was awesome. And, you know, she's always like reaching out. So when are we having the next training for members? When are we having the next? So really appreciate Women in Humanitarian Response and the work they are doing to support women and, you know, women-led CSOs to build their capacity, as well as also respond to the needs of women in the rural areas that are affected by, you know, conflict or other forms of issues. And we also have Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, JONAPID. We had a research. I'm sure some of you have come across the research of how persons with disabilities are keeping people safe. So that was done jointly with JONAPID, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities. And it was a great work where they actually led the research. They went, you know, it was covered in different parts of the country. And, you know, they brought in the reports, you know, and so that was also awesome. We got that amazing report, which was also, we had the webinar, the online dissemination, as well as the face-to-face dissemination. And we also mentored JONAPID Enugu State chapter. Augustine, I hope you're there. I think I can see you, yes. So we mentored JONAPID Enugu State chapter. They are part of the first mentored organizations that we are part of the mentorship program. And with that, they were able to like identify the key things that they needed at the Enugu State chapter for the organization and what they need to do. And we also have BBC Media Action. BBC Media Action, you know, was also helpful in terms of helping us to spread safeguarding message to across different media outlets, you know. So we were able to have different trainings around safeguarding and communication. You know, safeguarding cuts across, you know, so they were training their media partners, you know, in different states, and we were able to go and raise that awareness and consciousness, you know, about safeguarding and the role of even journalists in terms of safe communication. And then for the last, the big group, our government group, At-Risk Children Project. Yes, I'm leaving the biggest for the last. At-Risk Children Project, led by Ajia Miriam. Yeah, I think I can see her. Yes, well done. Great to have you. So yeah, in fact, the enthusiasm that these projects, came with, there was lots of enthusiasm, there was lots of willingness to really work to improve the safeguarding. So some of you might know the At-Risk Children Project is actually a federal government project under the presidency. It's under the Social Protection Program of federal government of Nigeria. And youths are being trained to really be able to now support at risk, so like there's a level. So to really further now support at-risk children who are out of school or at risk due to one thing or the other in the various communities. So RSH was approached, and we were able to facilitate trainings for these youth facilitators, as well as help at-risk ACP, it's called ACP, At-Risk Children Project, to help ACP to really develop their own safeguarding policy. So ACP now have a national safeguarding policy, and then the different states will now go on to adapt the policy. So we really appreciate, and the enthusiasm. We're able to provide some IEC materials for the projects as they go to the different states. And so that commitment was really awesome when we worked together, to develop the policy, the commitment, and even at the validation of the policy, there were different representatives from different government agencies, different government agencies and parastatals were actually very much represented in that validation workshop. So meaning that, safeguarding is actually seeping through. So not just the CSOs that we focused on initially, but like Dr. Eleanor mentioned, we are now progressing. So getting into government as well, for that uptake, and which we believe will also cause more sustainability, because when government takes it on, then and ensure that different organizations, different partners they work with all across, that safeguarding is imbibed, then we know we're heading somewhere. So thank you all very much. Glad to have this. So back to you, Dr. Eleanor, please.
Thank you, and thank you again, dear Oge, for that list of recognitions. Here we are, the Nigeria Resource Support Hub. If we did not have the support of the Nigerian government, we wouldn't have a conducive environment in which to operate. I have requested most kindly Mariam Uwais, MFR, the Senior Special Advisor, Social Investment with the Presidency of the Office of the Vice President from Aso Rock, to give us a very brief goodwill message. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eleanor, Oge, and all the people in RSH and globally and in Nigeria, the young people that have been reaching out to me. I have that, I can call people young, I'm at that age. and all the partners here. It has been a really, really exciting and very enhancing project for us working with RSH. As had been mentioned by Oge, we work from the Office of the Vice President, trying to see how we can support out-of-school children, integrate them in the community, give them a lot of dignity and hope. And we work through young people who actually live in the communities and don't have jobs, but they must have some measure of education and they must be ready to protect children and promote their rights within the communities. So we ask states that invite us to give us data of 50 young people per local government, given the sheer numbers. We take 50 per local government and we train them over a whole array of endeavors. You know, it could be, there's foundational literacy and numeracy, there's skills, there's sports, so that they can also be able to imbibe some life skills, healthy competition, team spirit. We also do digital skills, and then the softer issues, of course, we look at legal services, because there's a lot of SGBD that happens in the communities, and the children that are violated really have no control or access to justice. So we thought it would be nice to have young people in the community who understand where to go and how to safeguard their rights, you know. And so we've done also security awareness. A lot of things happen in the training. We take these young people, these youth facilitators, as we call them, through a 3-week period of training. And, you know, it was fortuitous that Dr. Eleanor mentioned that this is what they were doing, because we've been looking for how to ensure that these youth facilitators understand what safeguarding means, because they're primarily going to be working with children. After the training, they are assigned 50 children in their communities that become their responsibility, and they mentor them, they train them, and they also monitor what they do, because when you have some measure of education, you understand the value of education. The parents love their children, but of course they don't understand why it is important for the children to remain in school. And this is why we insist on the youth facilitators having some measure of education. And so, I mean, we've had we have almost 5,000 facilitators now, having been trained, and we've engaged them with this safeguarding policy. It was something we went through with RSH. They held our hands through the process. And then we had 17 ministries, departments, and agencies sit down to validate it. And this is what it is. This is what we have. We was heavily involved. We were sharing drafts with him, and when we finished, he graciously produced the forward for us. We've been sharing it with ministries, and I must say, because we do foundational literacy for all the children, on the foundational literacy book itself, you know, the guide for teachers, which is what the facilitators use, we reproduce this. So they need to sign before we even give them the foundational literacy. They need to commit to the safeguarding policy, and then we have other agencies of government monitoring to ensure that they actually commit. And as it is, we're getting data. Nigeria is so large. We do not have the money to do all the monitoring, to get people outside, you know, monitors to look at it. But we've got a government agency actually monitoring what they do. So we ensure that they also abide or comply with the commitment that they've made in the safeguarding policy. Well, this is a journey that we've begun in creating an army of, for a better word, of competence and capacity at community level, young people who have no jobs, who now are negotiating with parents, understanding the reasons why this needs to happen. And we're getting them to monitor and to give us feedback every month on at least 70% of the children assigned to them. When they send back feedback, we have these Google Forms. We don't have devices yet, but we will get there. And we pay them 30,000 naira, the minimum wage, for reporting back on the children. And this is all going to NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, because we want to understand why children are out of school. So they have a responsibility also to report back if the children will come for training. Of course, they seek for parental consent before we commencing. And it's with that that we get assigned when they show that they have the consent. And then they begin to give us feedback. We need to understand the trends. Why? Is it about hidden fees? Is it about cultural issues? Whatever it is, security, distance, absence of teacher, so that we can actually curb this in a more strategic manner and be able to ultimately do something about child poverty and multidimensional poverty as a whole. So having given you this long lecture, it wasn't a brief. I didn't know I was going to talk. I was out. Yeah, thank you so much. We remain indebted to RSH, and we really wish you the very best. We hope that this will be sustained somehow, somewhere, and find the funding to do this. But it has really been helpful for us. We hope other ministries will take this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam Buwais, MFR, in sharing with us the impact that can be attributed to RSH in co-creating and additionally co-elevating one another in the journey of safeguarding. It's, to hear that 5,000 young people have been impacted by this program. Thank you. Truly encouraging. Now I have right next to me Shane Rice, who is the second secretary from the Embassy of Ireland. I have special connections to Ireland because I was trained in secondary school by Irish nuns. So the microphone goes to you, Shane Rice.
Thank you very much. I'll just very quickly say a few words. First off, I would like to congratulate everyone who's been involved with this project. It's fascinating to be here to learn, just like my colleagues in the SDO. And I think we must also congratulate my colleagues, my good friends from UK AID for the wisdom to fund this project, which has clearly shown the benefit and shown its impact already, even after this phase one. What struck me is the solutions and the problems, they're not something unique to Nigeria, they're not unique to West Africa. Back during my student activism days, I was involved with working on policies in universities around safeguarding and sexual consent. And the exact same steps that have been outlined, the key learnings, important of senior management buy-in, leadership from that side, peer-to-peer learning, and putting a system in place that is not just a one-off intervention, but something that can be sustained and carried forward. And that worked, and now it's been adopted as a government policy around sexual consent education at universities in Ireland that's rolled out across the system. So this is similar, this is what was reminding me of this here. And now that has become a priority for Ireland worldwide through our work abroad, promoting protection, safeguarding in all of our interventions around the place. And it's great to see my good friend Josephine here beside me, who I had the pleasure to work with around the 16 days of activism against GBV. And it ties up in very nicely that the work that the RSH has done supporting CSOs who then can go and implement on the ground work to put forward that message of consent, of tolerance, of safeguarding, of protection, of caring for one another through their work, their critical work in Nigeria and further afield. So that very quickly, just this is a project that Ireland is very aligned to, and I hope that we can find a way to work together going forward. I know I've been a bit aloof from you doing that lately, but I'm glad you've made it today. And thank you for having me to learn from this. And best of luck with the next couple of steps that you can take. And I hope that we can be there to help you along the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. RSH, that we have a safeguarding champion in the Embassy of Ireland, and looking forward to opportunities going forward. But we are now going to have a session where we're going to hear from our partners who have worked hard in the field, who have walked the talk, who have shown great leadership with regard to the safeguarding journey. So the impact of RSH Nigeria Hub and a brief sharing from the RSH champions. I'm going to start by introducing Dr. Ogazi, Josephine Ogazi. She's the Executive Director of the Widows and Orphans Empowerment Organization with the acronym WE. They were a mentored organization, mentored by RSH. And I'm handing the microphone over. She's enthusiastically already standing and ready to go. Over to you.
Good afternoon, my dear colleagues and the existing protocol. My name is Josephine Ogazi. By the grace of God, and only by the grace of God, I am the Executive Director of WE. Next slide. Yes, so what was safeguarding like for WE before resource and support hub? Well, before they came, we felt we were safe. We had a child protection policy, but we work with over 150,000 children. And so we thought we were okay. But when they came and they assessed us, we realized that child protection is different from safeguarding. We didn't have a risk register. We didn't have a safeguarding policy. We had a child protection policy, but we didn't have a safeguarding policy. We didn't include it in our recruitment processes. We didn't have do's and don'ts. We didn't have the organizational culture of safeguarding. Next slide. That's how we were before. And so for the what was our relationship with Resource Support Hub, and how did they improve our safeguarding culture in the organization? And this is blocking the slide. So can you minimize it? So how did they improve our safeguarding? First of all, they didn't, you know how other consultants, they come and just train you, give you a document, you and go. They didn't do that. They trained our staff from top to bottom. Then they gave us a mentor who came to office and attended our meetings. So she was able to see our structure and say, hey, people do things like this. Okay. And I pointed that to us face to face, not a document. And then, and not only that, they engaged our leadership, because in Nigeria, the subordinates will keep quiet. Your guy will take decision. So you can go for training as a subordinate. When you come back, you can't do anything about it. So they understood that. They now engaged the board, or we trained the board, or we gave them roles and responsibilities to supervise safeguarding. Then they engaged me as executive leadership, and that drew my attention to, we have 150,000 children, and I thought protection was the same thing as safeguarding, and I now know it's not. So what are we doing on safeguarding? So the mentor and the training, they now helped us, and we now have our safeguarding policy, and then we now improved with the training of the board and the staff, and we have hundreds, thousands of community volunteers that go to the children's houses for us. We don't work in orphanage. So those community volunteers, you know that they can exploit the children by saying, I will enroll you in this program if you sleep with me. You know now, they can do that. I said, with all those children, how do you know the community volunteers are not doing that? So we were trained by our mentor. Now came close, joined our meetings, understood where we had needs, and she now recommended forms that we should, when we're engaging our community volunteers, that we should make sure that we track their background with the police before we just ask for references. Now we go and check whether they have criminal record. Now we also get consent from the parents. We also look at safe spaces where the children that we're working with can talk and report. Not even adults is there, they will not report, but among children. So all these things have been have been planned to put in place. Some of them are already in place, and that has also improved our safeguarding culture. Next slide. So these are the things that we did with resource support hub, trained staff. As I said, we now have a safeguarding policy that is different from our child protection policy. We have do's and don'ts. We have code of conduct. In our risk management plan is incorporated, and everybody in the organization has safeguarding duties in their job description, and you're measured by your performance in the office if you carry out and successfully carry out your safeguarding duties. Next slide. And so how we relationship with resource support hub has improved our safeguarding journey. We now not only have things in place where we have a safeguarding policy and we have staff who are carrying out safeguarding plans. We also have feedback whereby we can, as we implement our project, we get feedback. We also have a sexual harassment policy, that's sexual exploitation and abuse and harassment policy. And we now carry out, as I said, background checks on those community volunteers. We also make sure we get consent and we engage with the child to see whether they are being exploited. And we also embed the safeguarding rules in the description. And our adverts too go out now. We make sure that, and our interview process also incorporates questions on the safeguarding. And when we send out a reference check for a job, we include in the reference check now, do you know whether the candidate has a bad reputation with children? We have safeguarding questions in our recruitment process. So we go an extra mile, whoever we're recruiting, to make sure that we check, have a very close background check. Next slide. Then the impact, in fact, the end of the thing is better than the beginning, the Bible says. The end of resource support hub has made we be better. And not only we be better, we have 11 NGOs that they've also made better. And then we is an organization that builds the capacity of almost other NGOs. Some people see our adverts, we're doing training. So we now embed all we're doing to our sub-partners and to other NGOs. So they not only built make we be better in safeguarding and our safeguarding culture, they have also trained us also to make others better. Next slide. So how we promote resource the support hub legacy. So what we're trying to say that now that the project has come to the end, right? What do we do to continue what we have been trained? So we are stepping down our safeguarding policy and our safeguarding activities to all our partners and vendors and everything we do. For instance, now we is a capacity building organization for USAID. We conduct assessments for maybe over 100 other NGOs. We're even doing one currently. So in the organization, we use an organizational capacity assessment tool. And that tool didn't have a safeguarding domain. It only had gender. So we are now including a safeguarding domain. So when we go to an organization, we assess the organization now on their safeguarding based on the assessment that RSH did. And so I've been in the NGO system for long. and I've gotten a lot of technical assistance. The RSH home was different because of the training and the mentoring process, and it really had impact. It's not just something documented I put on the shelf. It was very impactful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Josephine, telling us indeed how you have walked the talk. You've actioned the policy. It's incredible. And you have, I've seen and heard that DE even has a safeguarding anthem.
Yes.
A safeguarding anthem, the first of the CSOs to orchestrate an anthem. So we will play that during the lunch break. And indeed, the end of a thing is better than the beginning. So the end of the phase of a thing will be better than the beginning. So very quickly now, let me introduce Lola Adeola Oni. Lola is a researcher, a consultant. She is RSH Nigeria's National Expert Board Chair. Currently the principal consultant at Track Development Hub. Please, the microphone is yours, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I need to get my phone, but I have my notes on my phone. I thank you, standing on existing protocol, but also I think, and more importantly, I would say, I'm also standing on the shoulders of 9 other NED members who are presently, well, 2 are here, and I think 1 is online. Professor Rafatai is in the room, Dorothy from DFN Foundation, from DFN also is in the room, so I'm standing on their shoulder as well. I share, like there's something common we always say, this is value experts, right? You always do lessons learned, and it's kind of like a reflection for us in terms of what went well, what didn't go well, and how can we improve for the future. So, and this is just my own personal reflection, being a NED chair for the past 2 years, being able to support the work of RSH Hub in Nigeria. And I must say, at the time, I wasn't a full-time consultant then. I was still doing a 9 to 5. I was working with an INGO, Save the Children International. And I would say for me, it's really been quite an experience being the chair of the National Expert Board for the past 2 years. Both professionally, especially professionally, I must say, and especially if you're coming from an international organization where oftentimes you have all the funding, you have all the peer supports, and you can go in your career. But I think RSH kind of brought me back to reality. And when I mean reality, I mean the realities of lesser resource CSOs and NGOs in Nigeria and in other developing countries as well. And the need for them also to have their system strengthened when it comes to safeguarding. So for me, for lessons learned, I would say number 1, I think it taught me or it showed me, I think RSH came to put down roots. When I joined Save the Children earlier on, I realized when it comes to protection, child protection or anything protection, you had so many networks, right? You had child protection networks everywhere. And my question then was, why couldn't we have a safeguarding network as well? Because especially because of the confusion, people confuse protection with safeguarding, and they're 2 different or distinct approach. The response could be similar in a way when it comes to survival support, But everything else, when it comes to safeguarding and protection, they're two total different concepts, and the approach also is different. So I think RSH, what RSH did for the Nigerian development and humanitarian sector, and probably also in all the other countries where they have hubs, is putting down that safeguarding roots, making people understand the distinction and the importance of safeguarding, especially for CSOs and NGOs in those countries. And so it's kind of like what we used to have, like protection system strengthening. And I think RSH came at that time when it was very, very essential for CSOs also to begin to think about how to build their capacity as far as safeguarding is concerned. And then number two, for me, I would say RSH provided a framework on how to co-create, like I'm borrowing Dr. Eleanor's word, co-creating with CSOs, how to build a safeguarding culture. It's a framework that I think the mentoring framework is one that I've seen very, very helpful. I feel it's adaptable. And I'm saying this because I have gone ahead to use this framework to now support some of the CSOs that I consult for, or especially when donors, when big donors or funders come and say, oh, we have CSOs that we have grantees and we want to support them to build a safeguarding work. And I think I kind of borrowed from RSH's mentoring framework in terms of this is how it can be done. And I say this because oftentimes when we think about safeguarding, you think, oh, I have to have the money. But I think RSH has taught me that you don't necessarily have to have the funds. There are very creative ways of supporting lesser resource CSOs or organizations who don't really have the money, right, to build a safeguarding culture. Thanks to RSH, we have bundles of materials or resources online that you can go on to use, templates that you can use in your safeguarding work or in your safeguarding journey. The third lesson I learned is that, again, another word I borrowed from RSH that I always use all the time. Okay, so another word I borrowed from RSH that I keep on repeating when I'm talking to CSOs is also that safeguarding is a journey, it's not a destination. And I say this because having worked in NGOs, worked in UN, so worked, consulted for UN agencies, and also working or supporting CSOs. They are all, every organization, they're all on their safeguarding journey or safeguarding path. Nobody has it perfect. You would think that the most resourced will have it perfect. Nope. It's the reason why there's always cases of sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment being reported. Because if everyone had gotten it right, then maybe we would have lesser cases, or maybe management will do the right thing. Because there's some of these cases where after investigation, you realize that the management, maybe dropped the ball at some point. So I think again, I've learned that safeguarding is a journey for each CSOs and ING as well. We're all on a different path, and everyone is trying to make it better. Again, the safeguarding space is constantly evolving. It's constantly evolving. There's so many approaches coming out. There's so many ways of working. There are new trends also, new issues, new concerns when being reported daily. And so I tell people, don't feel like, oh, if you're listening or hearing about safeguarding for the first time, and you're thinking about your own organization and where you're at, I say, don't worry, don't get worked up, right? It's a journey. And for you to say you want to take action, you're taking the first step to building that safe culture. The first one is safeguarding advocacy. Again, it's always there's this thing then when I was working with INGOs where when it comes to working with people with government partners, it was always very stressful. Because you're bringing and you're coming to them and talking to them about safeguarding, and the bureaucracies as well. But I think RSH also demonstrated how you can advocate, you can do advocacy at that government level where they listen to you, And a good example is including safeguarding in the third gender action, national action plan. We saw a lady from the VP's office this morning as well, teaching us how to do safeguarding advocacy, even at the government level as well. And then lastly for me, which I think is of a professional benefit to me, is visibility for national safeguarding professionals. You may know, you may have seen the list of safeguarding consultants that RSH has on their platform, on the website. And I've gotten so many jobs from that platform. People reaching out to me to say, oh yeah, we have your Nigerian, or oh, you have Nigerian experience or developing country experience, and we're trying to build or develop a safeguarding, or we're trying to work with some CSOs that we need you to develop products or standards for in that area. And I think it's given for every members. I feel everybody had the opportunity to be visible. Now, not only at the national scale, but also globally as well. For some of the products, I was privileged to develop some of the products on the website, and I know some of my NEP colleagues as well had the opportunity to do that, to do the same thing. Contributed for CHS Alliance, which is one of the global international humanitarian network out there, to contribute to their blog, to contribute to the 2002 accountability report as well, and it's all due to RSH. Are there things that we can do better? I think surely yes, there are, and I'm glad that we have the legacy projects as well. And what I would say is, even as RSH is coming to an end, we the NED members, still hold that commitment to keep the fire burning. So if you ever need support, holding of hands, mentoring, coaching, please reach out to the NED members. We even have a member, the Jemasi Foundation, who's given us a space where we can even run free safeguarding trainings. We have members like myself as well, because I'm now committed to say, you know what, for CSOs who can afford me, I will provide free safeguarding trainings, right? Yes, I'll provide free safeguarding training. The consulting firm that I run now, which is Strand Development Hub, and one of our goal objectives is a percentage of the profits we make goes into safeguarding, training people, and providing those resources or those services to organizations or individuals who can't afford, maybe to hire a consultant or to hire a full-time safeguarding person, or even to get a focal point. And I think that's one of the commitments we are making through the legacy work that will be introduced to later on. That yes, RSH is growing, but it's still very much here because they're taking down roots, and the roots are springing up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Lola. There were so many nuggets and pearls there. Thank you for the commitment and reminding us about putting down safeguarding roots that will sprout into big Iroko trees. So now I'm moving the microphone to Mr. Onyeacholam. He is the safeguarding focal person for the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, the Enugu State chapter. His organization is an RSH mentored organization. Thank you very much, Mr. Austin. The microphone is coming to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Augustine, I'm a physically challenged person from Oge River, Enugu State, Southeast Nigeria. Being physically challenged from the age of 15, I am a graduate of business education from University of Benin
also an MBA holder from Federal University of Technology. I'm currently an advocate, safeguarding mentor, stakeholder in Stability Committee in Nigeria. Just as introduced, JNAP Enugu is the State Association of Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, the umbrella body of the association, Disability Association in Nigeria. At the time of this mentorship program, I was the state secretary of State Association, JNAP, and we identified for the training, and we're happy for it. JNAP is comprised of the blind, the deaf, the physically challenged, the physically challenged, the spinal cord injured persons as the wheelchair users, the leprosy survivors, and the intellectually impaired. That's those they comprise members of JNAP Enugu. Before we started the journey with RSH Nigeria, the closest safe and protective project and program available to us is gender-based violence. That is the closest safeguarding, I call it safeguarding or protective program that we are exposed to. And as you know, that this GBV focus on women and girls with disability and few males with disability. As we all know, gender-based violence is violence directed against a person because of their gender. Both men and women experience gender-based violence, but the majority of victims are women and girls. At the onset of safeguarding journey with RSH to the organizations of persons with disability and persons with disability themselves, has provided a refined solution to all abuses and negligence suffered by persons with disability in disability development programs and projects. The 6-month mentorship support from RSH started our safeguarding journey in JNAP Enugu. As an internal mentor, I received series of intensive training on various safeguarding topics from RSH. And I was provided with regular one-on-one support and guidance as we progress on the journey. During my first step down training, I focused on interested cluster executives. What I mean by cluster, each of the disability group is a cluster, like the blind, the deaf. But there are people who on introducing it at the state, at our state meeting, they know that we're out instantly to take it on the blind, the deaf, and the spinal cord injured. So I focused on them, including my state chairman. And we started working as a group and grew on the journey. I must commend RSH Nigeria for their very helpful approaches on the mentoring program, which made learning and development smooth. One of those helpful approaches was pairing me with an external mentor by name Julie Okafor as a buddy on the journey. After one of the intensive training by RSH Nigeria for all internal and external safeguarding mentors in Abuja, Julie and I returned to Enugu and carried out several internal training and group discussions on safeguarding policy within JNAP. And this resulted to the following. As a group, as an association, we work together to produce a safeguarding policy. Not myself, we came together as a group and did it. It's not an individual stuff. I also produced code of conduct for the association in the United States. We have it now working in our system. Secondly, individuals, especially the visually impaired, indicated good interest for more safeguarding online training, which was led by Julie Bukavu, guiding them through RSH safeguarding e-learning modules up to the 4th module. We will ensure that the benefits and gains gotten so far from safeguarding support received from RSH are sustained. Currently, we have a new executive managing the general Enugu, and I have the plans. I have started working on plans with them to initiate safeguarding policy training for each cluster. And I mean each cluster now. I do a program for the blind, the deaf, the physically challenged where I belong, and then the leprosy survivors. These are the groups that have standing associations. And I am working out plans to step down this training for each of the executives individually. And after this, we're working towards stepping it down, the training down to the local government level. We have 17 local governments in the state. By the time we have done that, the lesson must have sunk down to all the fabrics of disability management in the state. So we are very grateful for RSH because this is just like the previous speakers have said, their system is quite different from other approaches to have experienced. Because the way they do it is like taking you by hand. This is how to start, this is how to do it, and at the end, they lead you. Now start doing it by yourself. It's very encouraging, and I'll say we are lucky that out of the 36 states of the federation in Nigeria, that Enugu State happens to be among the first that came in contact with this. It was through our association that the national got the link for the research that we did. So I'm very happy for that, and I thank God that as we go on, more activities will unfold itself. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Augustine. Just like David said earlier in the day, we are all learning from one another. Thank you for sharing with us the importance of understanding the different clusters within organizations of persons with disabilities and how different the uptake can be for the different disability groups. And thank you also for the commitment regarding stepping down the trainings. Yes, RSH holds your hand, but just like the eaglet being pushed out of the eagle's nest, when it's time, we know when to let go, but we're still there watching with the eagle eye, and we're available for you to consult us when the need arises. Next, the microphone is going to Stephen Oladepo, who is currently the founder, executive director of the Rise to Inspire Africa initiative, which is a youth-led, women and children-focused, impact-driven organization. They are working in the northeast of Nigeria and a user of RSH Nigeria's Ask an Expert service. Thank you, Stephen.
My name is Stephen, and I work with Rise to Inspire Initiative. We are a very young nascent organization, and as a very young organization, we've always, put in place. We try as much as we could to put in place policies, systems. Okay, so for us at Rise to Inspire Initiative, one thing we consciously put in place is to see that our programs, our systems, and structures they align with best practices, internationally recognized best practices. And this is due to the fact that we understand that there are basically those practices. And then again, this was one of the reasons why we reached out to the Resource and Support Hub team to support us in building, having a safeguarding and code of conduct policy that is relevant to the work we do. And that's just to ensure that everyone that comes in contact with our programs, everyone that comes in contact with our activity and our organization, members of our trustees, our staff, volunteers, and interns, they are protected from harm, exploitation, abuse, and harassment. Prior to contacting the Resource and Support Hub team for this amazing support, we had a child protection policy, and in addition, we had a prevention of sexual exploitation policy. These two policies were sort of generic, very, very big, and this is because they were very young, you know, so we're just being ambitious. So the policies did not actually spell out reporting mechanisms. So these are some of the pitfalls we identified with the two policies we had. It didn't spell out reporting mechanism, it didn't spell out the need for us to have like a safeguarding focal point. It didn't actually spell out how do we report incidents in the events there are incidents. So, and then again, the policies are actually going two different directions. The PSA policy is talking about something else, the child protection policy is also talking about something else, but we actually don't have the knowledge. So we don't even know that they are going two different directions. The policy also communicated our commitment to our beneficiaries alone, leaving our staff, our volunteers, our interns, and even vendors, and anyone that comes in contact with our program at risk. So assessing the Acts and Expert service, we changed the way we view safeguarding at Resting Spark initiative. So rather than having two big and highly ambiguous policies that are not speaking to our program, we saw the need to collapse these two policies into one document. And not just having it as one document, but one document that is relevant, that speaks to our activities on the field and in the office, that speaks to our beneficiaries as well as our staff, volunteers, interns, as well as vendors. What have we been able to do since assessing the service? We now have an improved code of conduct policy that has been signed by over 80% of our staff. Just some few staff that recently joined us to take them through the orientation. We've also mandated that the safeguarding policy or the safeguarding training would be included as part of our orientation program for all new hires going forward. We've also taken the step to mandate all our member board of directors to take the prevention of sexual exploitation online course, which they've done, and also submitted the certificate to us, which has been properly filed and documented in the office. Not only that, just recently we indicated our interest to responded to a notice for funding from the US government, US Embassy Abuja here, and they asked us to submit our safeguarding policies, duly signed. And when we submitted the policy, we were excited at the feedback we received. Unlike before now, where we submitted some of those policies we had, you know, the feedback we got was our safeguarding policies are not strong enough, they are not up to date, they are not relevant. We got a feedback from the US Embassy that this policy is good, we love what we saw. And that's actually great. We want to say very big thank you to the Resource and Support Hub team for the incredible efforts put in place to ensure that we have this policy. Not only that, one other thing we've taken up as an organization is to, going forward, and is when we are responding to any funding, notice for funding opportunity or sending out our proposals, at least 1%, between 1% and 3% of that funding will be dedicated for safeguarding. This is like my colleague here said, and we want to be very deliberate about this. And we now have a safeguarding committee. So rather than have a safeguarding focal person, we decided to have a safeguarding committee because we realized that one person could be biased. So rather than have just one person, we have a three-man committee for now because of the, a 3-person committee. Right? So, Thank you very much for the correction. Yes, we have a 3-person committee right now, comprising of the Human Resources Officer, the Child Protection Officer, as well as the Monitoring and Evaluation Assistant. So we developed a terms of reference. I'm happy to share with the SRH team if you could take some time to just review. We developed a terms of reference for them right now, and we are also planning a meeting, training for them to understand their roles and responsibility. We've trained our colleagues in our office on safeguarding. Sorry, do you want to share the pictures? Share some of the pictures with you. It's fine if you don't. It's fine if you don't have it. Yeah, we've conducted safeguarding training for our colleagues. And whilst we are conducting that training, we invited 2 other civil society organizations, Media Communications for Health and Iowa Young Women graduates who participated, in the training process. And our commitment going forward is that we want to ensure that we not just ambassador by the books, right? We want to also extend these hands of learning to other civil society organizations in Northeast Nigeria. We had recently indicated interest to join a community of practice by the Promoting Local Response Capacity and Partnership. That's an INGO, the Nigerian INGO Forum Initiative on Localization. And one area we told them we are willing to contribute pro bono and voluntarily is to support capacity strengthening around safeguarding. So these are some of the actions that we've taken so far as it relates to safeguarding. And thanks to the Resource and Support Hub team for helping us see the need to take this bold step. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Several gemstones in that presentation. Congratulations that you got positive feedback on your proposal from the U.S. Embassy with specific mention to the safeguarding policy. It's wonderful to hear that you're deliberate and intentional and have ring-fence funding, a budget line for safeguarding. And you don't just have a safeguarding focal person, but you have an entire committee. And that pinnacle of commitment that you are not just an ambassadors by the book, but you are working with others. So thank you for those gemstones. So here we are, it's a hybrid event today, and we have some other presenters who will be joining us online, presenting online. So we will now pivot to our online panelists. And I'm going to start with Benyetchet Ibrahim, who is the Safeguarding Focal Person and Programs Assistant for Relief Resource Initiative, RRI. And they are an RSH mentored organization. And let's hear from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Benyetchet Ibrahim. I'm the safeguarding focal point for RRI, which is Relief Rescue Initiative. And I want to thank you for this privilege to speak on this great relationship between my organization, RRI, and RSH Nigeria Hub on behalf of my executive director. We are delighted to have undergone this first 6-month safeguarding journey with RSH Nigeria, as well as the second 6-month journey on safeguarding on safer organizational culture pilot. These have provided us immense knowledge on safeguarding practices and brought about positive organizational change in RRI. Before the safeguarding journey began in September 2021, RRI was largely mainstreaming protection, while gender mainstreaming was in a fluid manner. Most of the mainstreaming was determined by our donor, WFP, through their Protection Focal Point, who facilitated all trainings covering PSCA, AAP, GBV, and gender. We had superficial knowledge of the rights of our program participants whenever there was any protection concern, and we were not prepared or equipped to handle such concerns, except through or by our donors who were always in communication with us. Except for the help desk, we had no other complaints and feedback mechanisms or safe space created for confidential reporting or sharing personal concerns for support by staffs. Leadership behavior wasn't in question. Issues of harassment were never raised, perhaps because it never happened or because perpetrators and affected persons didn't know that the behavior was called harassment and should be frowned at. In a nutshell, ignorance was largely responsible for the poor protection mainstreaming in RRI. In addition, safeguarding itself was a term we interchangeably used with protection and therefore ignored the difference. As we commenced our safeguarding journey with RSH, the entire landscape changed for better. We began to implement best standard practice to keep our organization and the people we serve safer from sexual exploitation and abuse, sexual harassment, and other forms of harms. To this effect, we did not only carry out risk assessment using the OCA tool, but we also were taught how to bridge the gaps identified. This means our policies, code of conduct, and organizational values were reviewed and updated. Our job adverts and website were updated to include safeguarding commitment statements. Our aptitude evaluations and interviews now include screening safeguarding questions, while the HR department ensures background checks are carried out on new employees. The second phase of the safeguarding journey brought with it great achievements and successes. While the first phase centered on ensuring documents were up to date and available for use, the second phase centered on organizational cultural change, questioning the use of power, behaviors, and attitudes in leadership, creation of safe space, ensuring staff are living out the values of the organization, and ensuring diversity and inclusion are upheld in the workplace. RRI ensured these were implemented with trainings facilitated to get home the all-important knowledge of organizational cultural change. Our staff are now aware of the importance of diversity and inclusion in creating a safer organization. We are conscious now, more than ever, that as diversity is mainstreamed in RRI, our differences become evident and our biases ultimately emerge. We remind ourselves about workplace biases during weekly meetings and sensitize staff on the reporting channels in case of a breach of policy. Senior staff now practice open door policy, and female staff have a dedicated room when it's necessary to confide in a colleague. Trainings, step down, and induction on need basis are carried out monthly for both staff and RRI associates, and RRI ensures program participants are carried along on plans through community consultations for sensitization and stakeholders buy-in. It is my pleasure to inform you that the safeguarding program at RRI met its objectives, and everyone is now committed to make RRI and our programs safer for all. For RRI to promote RSH's legacy and online resources, sustainability, that is long-term strategies, are planned to be implemented. One of these strategies is that we plan to continue to build the capacity of our employees and partner staff. Because our employees are our assets, they are our long-term plan on which RRI relies as champions of cultural change. These employees will continue to imbibe the necessary behaviors until RRI becomes a role model for other partners. Personally, I will make RSH online resources a point of reference for other organizations during coordination, sector and consortium meetings, and interpersonal conversations. It is true that safeguarding is taking center stage in most projects and emergency interventions. I shall sensitize partners on the need for a shift to safeguarding from protection, and where necessary, facilitate trainings using the online resources with support from RSH consultants. Lastly, our appreciation to RSH for all the support we received from the commencement of the journey to this point. Words cannot express what achievement we have recorded during this journey. Thank you for your time and patience, and we look forward to a more collaborative engagement with you in the future. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you very much, Benyetchet, again for some amazing nuggets there. Thank you for sharing with us how, as you embarked on the safeguarding journey, the entire landscape changed for better. And we have heard your commitment and will hold you to account, as you have said, that your employees, who are your assets, will be champions of cultural change. I'm moving on now to our next panelist, who is online, and she was one of the first online participants this morning, all the way from Maiduguri, Borno State, Dr. Hassana Ibrahim Waziri. She is the Executive Director at the University of Maiduguri Muslim Women's Association. Dr. Hassana Waziri is also a lecturer in the Department of Political Science at the university, and she is a member of the Nigeria RSH National Expert Board.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for remaining behind. As Dr. Eleanor has said, I am Hassana Ibrahim Waziri. I am speaking from Maiduguri, Borno State, Northeast Nigeria. And to speak briefly, it's been a huge opportunity to be part of RSH as a NEB member. For me, I found safeguarding as an elaborate approach in dealing with sexual exploitation, abuse, harassment, and all forms of physical, mental, psychological activity with all categories of people, adult or minors, within or outside my own organization. As safeguarding actually provided me with a broad understanding of how I want my organization to be mirrored, especially regarding sexual activity of any nature or any kind. It raised a deliberate consciousness when it comes to dealing with people within or outside the organization. As such, it actually shaped or reshaped, I can say, our organizational behaviors. We were opportune or privileged to have 10 of our members trained on safeguarding. And so it enabled us to develop a safeguarding policy in addition to our code of conduct And it also impressed one particular donor partner, or for which they were particular about just the code of conduct. But by the time we introduced the safeguarding policy, they now showed interest, and we referred them to the online e-learning and so on. So it also allowed me to introduce safeguarding to our led organization so that they can be familiar and develop a safeguarding policy, and also reshape their own cultural behaviors when it comes to safeguarding, particularly in a society where the culture of silence is very prominent, and where we've experienced different forms of sexual and gender-based violence because of the violent conflict we've gone through for over a decade. Like an Oliver Twist, I can say there's need to include more humanitarian organizations here in the Northeast, particularly Borno State, despite the online avenues of either free learning or library and other services that is open to stakeholders. And this is because we cannot really underestimate the impact of targeted engagement of such humanitarian organizations. Sometimes when you are just dealing with online, the touch is lost. So I don't know how this may come, but I know that I hope that something can come up so that people can benefit more and more because of this very all-important safeguarding issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassana Ibrahim Waziri. We heard very clearly how, unlike the usual direction in which things move, your donor wanted just the code of conduct. Did I hear right that you then convinced your donor to ask for a safeguarding policy? How about that, friends? And we have heard your appeal for RSH and programs like RSH to pay extra attention to those of you in the humanitarian sector in areas where there has been violent conflict. At this time, dear friends, we have come to the end of the presentations by those who have benefited as partners of RSH. In the next 30 to 40 minutes, we're opening up the conversation to friends online and friends in the room to tell us what has been your experience, what's your safeguarding journey. I would like to please start with the Senior Special Assistant to the Minister for Women Affairs, Princess Jumai Joan Idonije, because we're on Nigerian soil and we have to be sure that we have the Nigerian government as our friends. They have provided the enabling environment for our work. But Princess Jumai is also on the National Expert Board. And it was mentioned earlier, but I'll repeat it for those who didn't hear. Thanks to the engagement with RSH. Right now, as Nigeria's third generation national action plan on women, peace, and security is being developed, Princess Jumai was able to advocate that a section on safeguarding, which was missing in the first generation national action plan and the second generation action plan, that safeguarding is now an integral part of the third generation national action plan on women, peace, and security. So the floor is open. We're starting with Princess Jumai, but please raise your hand online or in the room if you would like to make a few comments about your safeguarding journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eleanor, for the warm introduction. I thought you were talking about someone else. Let me say that it's been an eye-opener. Like I heard some of the partners mention, that before that all they were doing was gender mainstreaming, and what came closest was the issue of GBV and confidentiality when it comes to actually invading the victims. But I want to share that going forward, as a practical manifestation of what we're talking about the gender policy, it's unfortunate my sister was unable to join us yesterday. We had these validation workshop for the SSS yesterday, the gender policy, and I was driving a faculty of over 10 experts to help them with the gender policy, and the issue of RSH was one of the biggest things that came in. Though we're not able to really push it, because of the military environment, we're not really able to push it in this, but we're in the strategic implementation framework that we're working on now. The issue of a whole paragraph, a whole page is dedicated to the issue of safeguarding. We're able to move the issue of gender-based violence into that document, and so it's a step ahead. So I think for now, I will share that policy with Dr. Eleanor, and she will also help me to see, and people don't realize that she's not all about RSH. She was actually the first to bring in the issue of WPS, Women, Peace and Security, into Nigeria. I recall we met on a flight, then I was SA to one of the ministers at that time. And she said, oh, I've been trying to drive this. I said, okay, come. And she came, and today the issue of women, peace and security is a big project. So I'm so happy that the issue of RSH is also taking its big space. Before we continue doing more of the policies, I think if we truly understand what RSH stands to bring to the society, every other person, every partner will open their arms to engage with the whole discussions around RSH. So I want to continue to advocate for this. And I want to tell you that by the time I'm retiring next year, that the NGO I'm working on is also going to be driving the issues of RSH. And then as we move on to develop specific gender policies for the different sectors, I'm happy we're driving the ones in the security sector, which is even one of the biggest that has not been doing well with GBV, because you can't talk GBV without RSH. So we need to be able to connect. So for everyone who is working on the issue of GBV, please try and also connect with RSH. That way the issues will be more easy to understand, and we'll understand that it benefits not only the woman, but also the man and even the children who are around the whole space. And one thing again I want to say is that when you engage with RSH, you should be able to understand the terminologies in gender mainstreaming. Like I heard my brother was talking 3-man committee, that we have moved from using that. So if you're doing work around RSH, ensure that you mainstream gender with the kind of terminologies that you're using. So instead of saying chairman, you should be able to say the chairperson. Instead of saying a 3-member committee, you should be able to say it's 3 persons committee, or you just leave it. You have a committee, so it's neutral. It doesn't make anybody feel out of space. So on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Talent OFR KSG, who nominated me to be on this project, I want to sincerely thank Dr. Eleanor and her team for actually making these issues of RSH a pleasant space to work. It does not keep too much demand on you. It gives you space to work at your own time and to appreciate the fact that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. That is just what I will say about RSH. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Princess. I love the fact that Princess Oluchi was using the terminology of RSH as synonymous with safeguarding.
Yes,
So RSH is safeguarding, and safeguarding is RSH. That is the household name. Okay, do we have any hands? We'll give priority to those online. I'm swinging to those in the room. Yes, thank you, Dorothy. I've seen your hand up. Tell us.
Doctor, there's Mike here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good day, everyone. Interesting journey it has been for everyone. Wherever you got on this bus, I believe that a lot of value has rubbed off on you. And the value that rubbed off on you is definitely rubbing off on your spheres of influence. If there's anybody that can relate to what I've just said, can be by show of hands, online or offline. You see? So, for us, with the Dorothy Jemasa Foundation, we have been doing a lot along the lines of safeguarding, but one thing RSH helped us to do. Oh, thank you, Hassana. I see. We see those online too. Thank you very much. Yes. So for us, one thing RSH helped us to do was better contextualize what the issues were and bring them to being. And one of the big problems we've identified, one of the strong reasons why we gave the Dorothy Jemasa Foundation space as a space for training is a problem we identified with one of the workspaces that, not much attention is paid to. And that workspace I'm talking about exists in almost every place in the world. What workspace is that? It's the home. In almost everybody's home is a workspace of some sort. There are nannies, there are security men, there are gardeners, somebody comes to clean or something of the sort, stewards amongst the rest. Now, a lot of the cases, the Dorothy Jemasa Foundation receives border on abuse. And because the homes are seen as informal workspaces, the amount of abuse that happens in these places, tends to be easily swept away. So while we have been pushing a lot of organizations to look through the RSH website and to find a guide to help them tailor their policies and the rest, to be more in tune with what safeguarding should be. It's been a serious challenge getting homes to do the same. So how do we get homes to comply with safeguarding standards? Now, the materials we have Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, English. I have been doing a lot of translating content into Pidgin English. And the Pidgin English has helped in so many ways across different spheres. So we've seen the need to, create more content in more languages that people can relate with. And then who needs to be partakers of this? Everybody who has a house help. And you see how it cuts across. So we see all the VAP-related issues. We see an opportunity, with this space to bring people up to speed with what the expectations should be. When you expose children to do what adults are supposed to do and give them penalties of criminals that broke into your house and all of that when they are only children or acting out as children. So what are the things that people should do? That workspace I talked about has the impact that small, medium enterprises and micro businesses have on every economy that you can find, right? So homes have impacts on the way forward or backwards that Nigeria can ever go in terms of safeguarding. I see a lot of work that is left for us to do. And I'm happy that a lot of us have signed on to the legacy project in different ways. I like the sound of people offering pro bono services because there's a whole lot of work for us to do. I appreciate that a lot of us have made meaningful progress in different ways, but the spheres of influence we have to impact on are so many. And I'm glad that we are strategically positioned and committed to ensuring that safeguarding is a thing that Nigeria will enjoy. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy Njemanze, member of the National Experts Board, leading one of the largest shelters here in Abuja. And I can share also an actress and filmmaker. Thank you for telling us how the home is an informal workspace. And exactly like Lola, our NEB chair said, the safeguarding space is constantly evolving. Safeguarding is a journey and not a destination. So even as safeguarding is evolving, we are enjoined to look at the home as an informal workspace. At the end of the day, it is for us to do no harm and not to abuse any power and privilege. Do we have any hand up online? Okay, whilst you're making up your minds. Minido. And we have Professor Rafatu. So first Minido, and then Professor Rafatu. And Mimido Achapa is one of the pioneers also in the Women, Peace and Security space, but executive director of the network of Women in Humanity, the Women in Humanitarian Network. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eleanor. I speak on behalf of Women in Humanitarian Response in Nigeria Initiative. I wear several hats. As of today, I chair the African Humanitarian Organizations Network, also. For us at Wirini, I must say that the member organizations have benefited tremendously from the trainings they have had on safeguarding. For me personally, at the level of my organization, we had most of these policies in place. But what struck me at one of the trainings was the difference between safeguarding and PCR training. I didn't know the difference. So when after the training, when Oge and Oluchi and Sylvia took us through the different trainings and the differences, it now dawned on me as a person that, wow, this is quite interesting. And we are supposed to continue some of these trainings. I don't know what happened, but this is the end of the phase one. Yes, this is the end of our phase one. So I have a strong conviction that there will be a phase two. And because the members have actually been asking privately, I know Sylvia is on the platform, is on our platform, that sometimes discussions go on behind the platform. And as of today, we have a membership base of 112 member organizations. Most of, it's a women-led organizations. Most of our members are from the Northeast, but it's a national network, and we have members across the 36 states of Nigeria and the FCT. Oluchi, please put us at the heart of RSH for the next phase. I know there will be a next phase. We also next phase. So please, if and when you start, we want to be at the opening, and we want to be an integral part of whatever happens in the RSH, please. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Video. 112 organizations and counting. And you have made a pitch to be at the front of the line for phase two. We hear you. But more importantly, the fact that the training was useful in helping you understand better the safeguarding principles. Thank you for sharing that. We have Professor Rafatu Abdul Hamid. She's with the University of Abuja, and she's also an active member of the National Experts Board. The microphone is yours, Professor.
Good day, everyone. I must start by expressing my appreciation, at the same time congratulating the entire team of RSH for the journey so far. Being a member of the NEB, I think I should be able to see one or two things of my experience during this journey. Actually, the word safeguarding was alien to me before now. I have executed projects, especially on education. The last project I executed or implemented was under the Creative Associate, known as National Northern Education Initiative. And what I learned from the project is this slogan, do no harm. And this is what we kept on advocating to our partners. But coming to RSH, I learned about safeguarding, which has broadened my knowledge. And I have found safeguarding more encompassing than any other word related to it. And this has, increased my knowledge and in my interest in that. Most especially especially when we had the training by Oge and the other lady. It was so interesting and educating. So the issue of safeguarding became, very familiar to me. And I just began to feel that every organization, in fact, individuals, they need safeguarding depending on what perspective they are looking at it. And that makes me being a coordinator of the Center for Gender Security Studies, University of Abuja. I wish to tell you that we are trying to develop our gender policy, and we are I'm going to make a proposal to incorporate a section of safeguarding because the students need it. And all of us as staff of that university, especially at the center, we need it. So I'm going to make it, and I believe that the management will accept it. Not only that, as a proprietress of a small school, I'm trying to develop a safeguarding policy, and also an executive director of a small organization project, a small NGO known as Arise Muslim Women and Youth Educational Initiative. I believe we need safeguarding. So I should tell you that safeguarding is of immense benefit to me as an individual and to where I work. By the special grace of God, we need to see more and more benefit of safeguarding because it is very relevant to our lives. Again, another experience is the issue of the virtual space that safeguarding or RSH now has given me the opportunity to, to swim. I can use that word. Initially, the issue of virtual, I look at myself and I said, okay, we are still analog. While RSH now, let's change my perspective, change my narrative that I'm no longer an analog person, that I belong to this camera. So through the use of, I remember there was a day I asked Mrs. Oge, I said, where's your office? She said, wow, she said, Hajia, we don't have an office online. I begin to imagine, how can this an organization exist even without an office? But I came to it is very possible because RSH has tried and we are very happy with that. So that is another one. Again, we can go on and on, saying our experience. I participated, RSH give me an opportunity to serve as a consultant on one of our projects, research projects, of course. And also that also broadened my horizon. And we're able to go to other places to interview people and get feedback. This is one good thing about RSH that I have learned, getting feedback and getting people's views and opinions. RSH don't just, to my view, don't just assume that people have the same perception and they know they go down to grassroots to get opinions, get views, and get the actual fact. We had to do this under the opportunity given to us by RSH, and I was able to discover that sexual abuse and harassment is common among school children, be it primary or secondary. Initially, we thought that it is more rampant, at the tertiary institutions, but it happens everywhere. This I was able to get through my research. And again, especially because we were looking at most of my areas is Northeast. This problem, the culture of, what is it called? The culture of silence. Yes. People up to us at that time, still some people are still having the notion that this must not be revealed. Because, for example, the girl may not have a husband to marry, she may be subject to stigmatization and so on and so on. That culture of silence still exists, and I want to use this opportunity to also advise, because Mimi has also prayed that we need the second phase. I think this should be a project on the culture of silence, because it still exists in our society. And they give various reasons, just like I said, part of his stigmatization, not having a husband, and so on and so forth. Then parents need to be counseled. They need to make aware, to agree, to be convinced that this culture of silence is more devastating to their children than any other consequence they look at. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Professor. Again, so many gemstones there. Now safeguarding is no longer alien to you. How wonderful that RSH gave you the opportunity to swim from analog now to digital. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's possible to do all this with an online office, no physical office. And something that is dear to my heart that you mentioned, the 3 S's. I call them the 3 S's of stigma, silence, and shame. And we have to break that culture. Thank you very much, Oluchi. Break the culture of stigma, silence, and shame. The 3 S's. Thank you very much, Professor. Now, we have Ofeyeke Omole, please, one of our dear mentors.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Foye. Ofeyeke Omole. Okay, sorry. Okay. So I think in just 1 minute, I'd like to speak about my experience on the journey. I think specifically on the organization culture project, I found it a very creative way of incorporating personal development in capacity building for staff. Hardly would you see an organization that will send its staff to say, go and learn about your personal values. But with the organizational culture projects, we found out on the field that most people we interacted with would say, oh, I didn't know that my personal behavior translates to the organizational culture. So it was a beautiful thing to see that within the project, people are being empowered to get into the realization of themselves. So most people didn't know that they should have personal values. But with the project, they realized that they have values and they are able to see their values also within the organizations they are working based on, the assessment that we did. So I would say that it was a good opportunity for people to model positive values that, aligns with their organization. And I would say thank you to RSH for this beautiful program. Like everybody else, we are open. So I'm not going to say I was a mentor. I'm just going to continue to say I'm a mentor with RSH. And we're looking forward to the next phase of this program. Thank you very much, everyone.
I have to bring this session to a close where we've run out of time and eaten into the next phase. So I'm going to ask Oluchi to now take the microphone. Our dear National Associates, Oluchi Ihedoro. Oluchi, what's really next for the RSH Hub?
So that's a 1 million question that is quite difficult to answer. But I think we can start from the known to the unknown. And I must say that I'm glad to hear us all in this room make lots of fantastic commitments on how we can take this journey forward. Everyone here has spoken positively on how RSH has impacted on them positively as individuals and as an organization. And just as I think Dorothy said that if you stand with safeguarding, then it's unavoidable for you to influence the people within your reach, your network, and your contacts. Of course, as an organization, your colleagues, your fellow networks, and others. Why? Because safeguarding is a way of life. For me, that's how I see it. It's a way of life. And our discussions today has also proven that safeguarding is something that we need to look into, not just with the CSOs implementing in the humanitarian and development sectors, but even in the homes, our homes, and we also head of schools. Now we're even thinking of tertiary institutions, but now we can also understand that beyond tertiary institutions, secondary, primary, that there are needs for safeguarding, empowerment, and systems to be put in place. Now, what is next for RSH? It's just like saying what is next for safeguarding in Nigeria. So speaking from the known, we are going to continue to do what we are doing. And for the commitments we've made, we'll continue to uphold them. We'll continue to transfer the knowledge we gain from the zero knowledge we had about safeguarding to where we are currently. We'll continue to transfer it to other organizations that have not been able to benefit from RSH, because there's no way we'll reach everyone in Nigeria. But we'll have champions now, well equipped and empowered to transfer the knowledge that you've been given, the capacity you've received, both capacity operating online, in person, training, staff, being conscious of the terms. Safeguarding is quite broad. Being conscious of the terms that we use when expressing ourselves and discussing with people. So that is one step for what's next for us. And then moving on from, see that slide, moving on from the side of RSH, we don't intend to leave the organizations that we've supported and those hoping for us to support them high and dry. Rather, we are making efforts from our end to see how we can at least get a second phase of these projects. And with that, we've been able to meet with some relevant donors in Nigeria and organizations. And we're actually hoping for either an extension to what we have currently as RSH, or also having a national organization adopting RSH, and then go ahead with the system. And I'm sure we rightly heard Mr. David, who mentioned earlier that the talk is still ongoing at FCBU. So that's also one of the partners, one of the donors rather, that will be met to see how we can extend this. So fingers crossed, we hope for positive feedbacks from these donors so that our requests, our pleas will be met with having a second phase of RSH. And I'm sure everyone in this room, and even those of us online, will be glad to hear us circulate the news that we are having a phase 2 of RSH, isn't that? Yeah. So, but for the interim, while we wait to hear from our donors, the potential donors, rather, we are going to be leaving you with the commitment we made, right? And then, next slide, Sylvia. We still have our online hub actively functional. So the phase that is coming to an end is just us, the people will see. Dr. Eleanor, myself, Sylvia, Nkiru, the Nigerian team who provide tailored support, one-on-one support, the handheld support we've all testified about here. That is the phase that is coming to an end. So we'll no longer be providing services such as Ask an Expert service that RIA initiative benefited from. We'll no longer be providing trainings that people really benefited from, and some other CSOs. Then we'll no longer be providing 6 months mentoring support that the CSOs here, for example, we benefited But again, we'll have the online platform, which has rich resources on safeguarding. I tell you, they are rich resources. And I saw a question from one of the online participants about how, or the line items that can actually be budgeted for safeguarding. We have rich material on that, on our platform, that can be explored with sample budget lines that you can incorporate in your proposals, or even in your internal budgets to have safeguarding budgeted for. So please do visit our site to get guidance on that. So the site we have, the Nigerian Hub online platform that we have, will now be named the Legacy page, which will be launching immediately after this my talk. So we're going to be having the Legacy page, and that Legacy page is not denying you of any of those resources, or it does not have any restriction. You still have free access to the resources there. But we've kind of grouped some of the resources to highlight for you the most downloaded materials, the user's favorites of all the resources. And then most importantly, our legacy documents. So on that platform, on that page, you have our journey, the RS Nigeria journey from 2022, right? 2020 to 2023, so to say. So you have the journey there, and then you have our achievements. You have a view to what we've done so far, the number of organizations we've reached, the services we've provided, just as hints for you. And then we'll have learning briefs on the mentoring program that we've conducted. The first mentoring program we did on safeguarding with some of the organizations, and the second phase of the mentoring program that will be on organizational culture. So we'll find all of the learning briefs there, which will take you through what we did, the steps we took, the challenges we encountered, the achievements we got, and recommendations that might be helpful for you or for other organizations that you might recommend to go through the same journey. And then we'll have the e-learning module. So all of those materials, the links you see on the legacy page, and it will still direct you to the main page where you have all of the other resources, including resources from other hubs beyond Nigeria Hub. And with that said, you still have free access to download these resources as you've always done. So even though the phase is coming to an end, downloading those resources is still available and is free of charge. The e-learning model that we have, which has actually made huge impacts in upgrading people's knowledge and understanding of safeguarding, will still be available, right, for everyone's access and use. And we'll have that in English and Hausa languages. And let me use this opportunity to advocate for us to spread the word to especially our Hausa speakers who, thank you. So we have the online, we'll have the link in the chat to the legacy page. So please, for the online participants, we'll have the link to the legacy page in the chat box. So please feel free to click on that or to access it. And for us here in the room, we'll have the barcode on this envelope. Yes. So you just use the barcode to get to the legacy page. It's also on the notebook. And we also have it here in this flyer. Thank you, Sylvia. So I was talking about the Hausa e-learning model. We actually did that translation to make it easier for especially the Hausa speakers to go through the model and understand what safeguarding means in familiar terms and language. But unfortunately for us, which is one of the things that pains us most, we did not really get uptake on that. So people still did not go through the Hausa version of the e-learning model. And we had to, just as Prof said, we don't just do things and go back. We try to get feedback. we try to keep learning to know how we're to improve on it. And we have to embark on a research to know why people actually did not use this or go through this, our RSH e-learning model in Hausa language, and some feedback we are receiving. And one of them is that people do not know about it enough. And we actually do keep saying it in any of our gatherings. We keep telling CSOs to circulate the information. So I also leave it with all of us here to spread the message that we have that the Hausa learning, Hausa version of the e-learning model for people to use. And we'll keep having webinars. The Nigerian hub will no longer have webinars, but the other hubs and the global hub will be having webinars. And that is also accessible to the Nigerians. And for you to get access to that, we'll be having, for all of us who subscribe to the Nigerian newsletter. So the newsletter again is coming to an end, but we'll be moving you to the global newsletter mailing list, if you are happy with that.
Yeah.
And on the legacy page, you will find a statement there that gives you information on this. I will be moving you to the global newsletter mailing list, so that you'll be receiving newsletters from across the globe. But if you're not happy with that, you also have the opportunity to unsubscribe on the page. But we feel it's very important. And that's our future for now, hoping that we'll get more positive responses from our donors, and then we'll see how we can start a second phase and continue on the journey. Thank you so much.
Oluchi, on this Wednesday, the 29th of March at exactly 13:33 hours. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Nigeria Resource and Support Hub to launch the legacy page. What's a legacy? It's the long-lasting impact of our interventions, leaving behind an inheritance or a bequest or a heritage. We call on you as champions, ambassadors of safeguarding. Put down those safeguarding roots. Keep singing the safeguarding anthem. Impact your circle of influence. Change the entire landscape for the better. And be an RSH alumnus. We therefore now, together, whilst saying the words "do no harm," please repeat after me. Do no harm. Again.
No.
Do no harm. Page is hereby launched. We're going to have a quick interactive session. We just want to hear from you. From those online, I'm going to ask our dear colleague, Alix Clark, to please put the consultation questions, and you can provide answers in the question and answer function for those online. For those in the room, Nkiru is going to hand out some sheets. Let us know your thoughts, please. Thank you, Alix. I see that you shared the link. Thank you. For those in the room, is there any aspects that you have recorded that you would like to share?
I just want to suggest that while the legacy page is also very important and very nice, we should also sustain this engagement via the WhatsApp platform, where we can put everybody together, so that in case anyone is in need of further information, they can always put that on there. I'm not talking about a platform where you're dropping political things, but it has to be really restricted issues that we're learning and every other thing, anything that's new around RSH and safeguarding, I think it will do for us to also call it a legacy page for your WhatsApp platform. Thank you. And also have a listen.
Thank you.
We have a suggestion here from Princess Jumaya Oluchi of the Ministry of Women's Affairs that in addition to the online legacy page, that we should sustain a legacy WhatsApp group, which is a brilliant idea. And I also want to give credit to Professor Rafatu Abdul Hamid. From another program, Professor, you shared with us how you were appointed as FOB1, the Federation of Muslim Women in Nigeria. You were at Muslim associations in Nigeria, that you were appointed as legacy partners. And thank you also for sharing that with us. Alix, are you ready now? Do you have?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and thank you for completing the form so quickly and thoroughly. I'll just go through some of the highlights from different questions. And
introduce yourself, Alix? I'm sorry.
yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I appreciate this is the first time I'm on your screen today. So my name is Alix Clark, and I am the Global Evidence and Research Lead for RSH. So I sit within the central team for the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub. And I've been with the hub for, I think, two-ish years now. So quite a while. I've been sat on the back end of the form, and so I can see people's responses. And I'll just share some highlights with the room from what people are saying, and perhaps we can see if people agree in the room and see if we're seeing similar trends. So in the form, the first question was around the current state of safeguarding across Nigeria, and whether we felt that the landscape had changed over the last 2 years. And I think there's a variety of answers, but in general, people felt that there was a greater awareness and understanding of safeguarding had increased across the sector within Nigeria over the last 2 years. One particular person has said more people understand the need for and process for applying safeguarding measures. Donors are demonstrating increased commitment to safeguarding principles, and government agencies are more conscious of the importance of integrating safeguarding in their plans. So there seems to have been an awareness shift and an understanding shift from what we're seeing online. And in general, people felt that RSH had contributed to that change, and they did give some examples looking at the training that's been provided. There's a few mentions of the mentoring programs and the importance of that to build capacity, and also generally contributing to increased awareness. I think you were all kind of shouting a moment ago about safeguarding and RSH being synonymous with one another. So that's really positive. There was an acknowledgement that there are still some challenges in the sector and still some gaps that could be worked on. And that includes funding gaps, general expertise at a local level being available, and donor commitment to fund safeguarding activities being one of those big barriers, and still some sectors or some areas and organisations that aren't fully aware of safeguarding yet. So perhaps those we haven't reached and that haven't been reached by other safeguarding initiatives. And again, similarly, the support still needed by CSOs. They're talking about kind of awareness, some calls for continued mentoring and capacity building. Funding has come up quite a bit again as well, and some just need for ongoing capacity building over the time. So whilst awareness has been raised across CSOs, there's still a need to kind of support with capacity so that they can begin implementation of safeguarding. So similar, lots of trends seen on the responses online, and I wonder if anyone in the room had similar thoughts to those when you were discussing it.
Thanks very much indeed, Alix, for giving us the summary, the highlights of what you're seeing on the form there. And I loved, the aspect about reaching the unreached. Is anybody happy to share any similarities with what Alix has shared, or something completely different? Any additional thoughts in the room? Yes, Dorothy's hand is up.
Okay, I just like that the questions made me to do some critical thinking, and I see room for us to strategically seek partnership with the Corporate Affairs Commission so that registration of new companies, safeguarding materials should be part of the things for consideration with registration of new companies. I think it will solve a lot of problems at the issue, and the RSH website, our legacy page, has opportunities for people to go there and get the training they need and develop materials. So if we start at, addressing things from the places where companies come into exceptions. I mean, right now, a lot of us go and do school and the rest of them to become compliant. So we can also work with allies for compliance, safeguarding compliance. So thank you for the feedback.
Nathaniel, first of all, thank you, Dorothy, for speaking to opportunities for institutionalizing safeguarding compliance and possibly working with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Thank you. Nathaniel?
Good afternoon, Ma, and please let me confirm if my audio is clear enough for you.
We can hear you loud and clear, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that the opportunity of working with the great team, the National Experts Board, over the course of the project has been very encouraging to me. I have seen changes, some of which have been highlighted, in responding to the survey that was just shared. I have seen organizations highlight the importance of safeguarding a lot more in their conversations. I have seen people, I've had people ask me, can we look more at safeguarding? Can you tell us more about how to get resources? I have been contacted by donors and organizations who want to integrate safeguarding. These are all very laudable improvements. And I think in the hall today or online, next year, I should have joined in today's meeting. They are the latest of organizations being supported by the British Council or working with the British Council to ensure their support for safeguarding. And I understand that the British Council wants to make sure that all their programs integrate safeguarding. Ma, I think this is great work you've done. You've led the team excellently from the beginning. It's been a pleasure working with you and working with the National Experts Board with our very amiable Lola, who has chaired us. I was very happy to hear the mention that there is a strong likelihood for sustaining RSH. Projects like this should not just go off, because our society is just getting to appreciate the importance of safeguarding. I remember when you showed interest in it during the SMILE program between 2013 and 2018. A few organizations learned about the importance of safeguarding. A few of them had safeguarding policies, but my reviews show that as soon as the project ended, that was where safeguarding ended for many of them. I was delighted listening to Dr. Josephine Ogazi speak earlier and about all that she's done at that level. That is impact of somebody taking over from what she had done under the SMILE project in her capacity as a consultant to the next level where she's doing it with such robust impact. Just to say it's great, and I've been listening to the testimonies from everybody since it started. I was on the highway, but I had to make sure I stopped somewhere to follow more consistently to avoid network outages, as was the case when I was still driving. Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to RSH once again. Thank you.
Our NEP member, Nathaniel, online. And thank you for sharing with us what I would call the hierarchy of legacies. Indeed, as programs come and go, you know, there are those who carry on the legacy, and when it comes to layers of legacies, those who have benefited from programs before, but knowing that safeguarding as a way of life should not just be a pilot, and that, you know, we continue to sustain it in the way that we can. We are now at the hour, and I want to hand the microphone, oh, absolutely, to my co-facilitator, Oluchi, after Madam Josephine of Wheelie has spoken.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Mrs. Josephine Ogazi. By the grace of God, the Executive Director of Widows and Orphans Empowerment Organization. I'd like to support what Doris said. I remember you from Benyetchet. Am I correct? Okay. So she mentioned compliance, and you know, we organizes compliance training with the 10 statutory bodies, CAC, NSITF. So when she mentioned compliance for institutionalizing safeguarding, I jumped on it and said, yes, so that would be a very good route to institutionalize and push for safeguarding all our organizations. The CAC might not be, registration point at CAC might not be the place where we can enforce safeguarding, because to register an organization, it does require you to fill a form online and to submit your details. And by Constitution, you're allowed to get your certificate. There is after, when you're implementing, the issue of, are you applying safeguarding strategy? So it's not really CAC. I think it goes to a secondary secondary compliance, that is women affairs. So if you're working, if you're an organization, an NGO, some of us register the Ministry of Women Affairs. So at that point, Ministry of Women Affairs, they used to come to our office and inspect what we're doing, and they visit your sites. And even the national planning, they visit your sites. So they should be able to look at your policy, then look at supporting documents to show that you're really implementing those policies. So I want to let me on record that I believe that RSH is going to have phase 2. And when they have phase 2, they should look at compliance issues and institutionalizing safeguarding the organization through the Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, those ministries that do registration. And at the sub-national level, the state levels, they should look at the state level, the state asking you, where's your safeguarding policy? And then coming to your office to check. So then all organizations will make sure that they have the policy, and then they train the government, the state level, sub-national, like Women Affairs and Youth and Humanitarian. They can now, when they come to the office, that will be one of the documents they're asking for. So did I get that? I want it to on record, because I know the lady in UK is writing it down. So for your phase 2, I'm speaking, calling those things that be not as they are. RSH already has phase 2. So for your phase 2, please your work plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Joseph, for really emphasizing the point of institutional compliance, and for us to look, okay, strategic ways of doing that. Please, can you give the microphone? Oh,
thank you. Once again, I'm Augustine Onyeacholam, an advocate of persons with disability, and I'm also a career mentor of persons with disability. A follow-up to what my sisters have said, the situation where is now at the prevalence of gender affairs that this thing will come in. There are some states that are not fully known now. From my interaction with the lady that spoke with us from Hassana, when I came to her, she told me point clear that any state did not participate in the project. Any state did not participate, they do not have anybody that she approached our vice, our deputy governor, said she will do something, and then nothing happened there. So that is now minusing us from anything that's happening there. So how do you take care of that? The CAC should still be a better option, so that everybody that is coming up, at least have information that this thing is necessary for you to
Thank you. That's a conversation we will continue.
The act.
Yeah.
Come and require you to go to national assembly and change the act. And change the act. You understand? But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can just list it. And
yeah. So Dorothy had her hand up, and then Princess Jumai. Sorry, you have 30 seconds each.
Okay, so remember that I talked about informal workspaces here. And I'm thinking about how we can capture all the workspaces, right? Formal or informal. Whether we like it or not, today so many businesses will be registered. And my advocacy is to the Corporate Affairs Commission, border around the fact that it started from a particular construction site. There were reports of rapes of little girls hawking oranges around that place. But all the construction workers said it is not their business. And I thought that the company that put human beings in that area, that put people in a situation where they were aware of series of serial abuse of children should be held accountable somehow. So if now, what exists with KAMA does not recognize that appropriate supporting documents be tendered as prerequisite for registration, the way we tender school, then there's a problem. I admit that Women Affairs is in the room, and I see the Ministry of Women's Affairs as, you know, it's going to be a situation of preaching to the converted, right? But I see other regulatory bodies playing the roles of ensuring people in complying with the documents that they are compelled to produce at point of registration. So with SCOMO, many people would not have cared about it. But after you have been made to go to that EFCC training, you find that a lot of people make it a point of duty to make reports. So I think that that is something we shouldn't miss. There are so many other allies for regulations. However, you know, CSC cannot escape it.
Thank you very much. This discussion absolutely has to continue. I just wanted to add that it is not only Women Affairs that registers organizations. For works, for every other, depends on the sector in which you're working. So we should just make it a point of duty to sustain the advocacy. And what I can promise is that I know that the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs will take this advocacy on. And then in terms of Enugu State not being a part of that, see, sometimes the entry point matters. You're talking about the office of the Vice President, where Mariam is coming from. I'm sorry to say that. They do not have structures in the state. So if I'm going to be talking about safeguarding under this, or the gamut of discussions around the table, your first point of call will be the State Ministry of Women Affairs, which is our own counterpart, to whom we are working with. So if you did not benefit from that, it means that they did not take on that advocacy.
The Federal Ministry of Women Affairs work hand in hand with other state ministries, and they have a 1-year consultation council. Same also with other sectors, works, humanitarian, they have what they call their National Council on those specific issues. So if the issue was discussed there and taken straight to them, because if they want to actually engage with the states at that level, they would have brought the request to the Ministry of Women Affairs. So that's how it works.
Thank you. So that conversation, I'm sure, can continue at lunch. And my co-facilitator, Oluchi, will close this session. But before I hand over the microphone to her, as we close this session, I want to recognize again in a very special way David Wokowu of FCDO. When I talk about the pinnacle of commitment, he has shown it as a safeguarding champion. He didn't just come here as in a celebratory manner. He came, sat down, and participated. And that is the type of commitment that really spurs us on. And that is the type of commitment we need to show ourselves as safeguarding champions, safeguarding ambassadors. And for some of us in particular, who I have given the honor, the honorific title of RSH alumni. RSH alumni. So over to you, Oluchi.
Thank you, Doctor. Not much left to be said, but just to thank all of us for the time we put in completing this safeguarding situational analysis. Exam, as Dr. Josephine called it. Thank you so much. It's quite helpful for us, and we are going to collect all of the responses. And just to say that most of the things that I already saw there kind of synchronize with what we have from our online guests. So it seems that all of us have the same view to what we have. And one key thing that came out of this is that there is still that huge gap on safeguarding in Nigeria. And with that said, in as much as this phase is coming to an end, like I said before, we will keep going on this journey. It's the phase that is coming to an end, not implementation of safeguarding or integrating of safeguarding in the work you do, not that. That's journey. We already acknowledge that it's a journey. So that journey continues. But the RSH Nigeria phase comes to an end officially today, with the online platform still available, but we'll keep going on this journey, and hopefully that another phase will come up. And maybe when this phase comes up, the alumni will now be part of those that will help to strengthen the capacity of the next people that we'll be focusing on. And thank you so much once again for all of those contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Oluchi. The final words will now come from Emma Wokowu, the RSH team.
Apologies, I didn't mean to talk again, but I have to run away. So just to say a few things before I run away. Apologies to Emma too for jumping into our session. I have also listened keenly to all the discussions, and I think even though Oluchi has said it closes today, it reminds me of everyone here is expected to be a disciple of RSH. So the issue is, or the question will be, to what extent are we geared up to now go forth and act as disciples of RSH and begin to spread the message in the different nooks and crannies or our different areas and spheres of influence to drive further down the message. I'm delighted that, forgive me, madam, I didn't remember the name, on human, Madam Juma Idonishi, beautiful. I'm glad that I met you here today, because one of the things I've discussed with her before, maybe she will remember as I talk about it, is the opportunity or the possibility of taking this message further down to the subnationals. Because oftentimes you'll see that this is not talked about at that level. So with the Ministry of women affairs or your department, to what extent has this communication gone to the subnational? How can that be strengthened? I ask particularly because I have regional coordinators who work with me in different subnational offices. And I've suggested to her before that perhaps we could write to state governments, but if we do that, they might not take it so seriously. Unlike maybe if you have communicated that message to them, and then we can join in pushing that message at that end to say, what are you doing with regards to safeguarding against SEER in their respective states, their respective ministries, departments, and agencies. So it would be great to talk to you a bit more around that, if there are steps to engage at the subnational in that regard and in that front. I'm also interested in the work you are doing with the security agencies, because some part of us do some work with security agencies, where there could be rooms for collaboration to strengthen that direction in that area. I'm not promising anything, but I'm just saying let's talk. Okay, so it might be useful at least.
Faculty members is here, so she was pitching.
Oh, so maybe it's just let's talk a bit about it, understand what you are doing in that regard, and see whether one could set up meetings for you to meet with those who are also working in that area to understand what they are doing and where there could be synergy and cooperation and collaboration. Some of the things again to talk about is you are the champions there. I wish I could come and sit here and learn from all of you, and also join you to become the advocates that you're already big advocates and champions of. So there's still a lot of journey for me to try and grow and learn about. But having said that as well, there's still a lot to be done. Like I said, there's small things you can do, because when you look at what has been done over these past 2 years, and you look at our population as a country, you know that it's like a drop of water in an ocean. That's the way I look at it, because how many people, perhaps if we count the different organizations here and the numbers of persons you have reached through your own advocacy, what percentage of that will be in terms of our population? I'm sure there'll still be a very huge gap. So perhaps again, Madam, at your own end at that side too, it calls for government taking a position on issues of safeguarding. I know there are agenda bills passed to the National Assembly which didn't see the light of the day. Perhaps those bills could be tweaked again to also include safeguarding, because I don't know to what extent safeguarding issues were incorporated in those gender bills that were passed to the Assembly and driven forward. The same thing with even the VAT bill. It can also be revived again, tweaked to include safeguarding, so that that is represented and driven. So there are lots of things that can be done to bring this to the forefront of our national life and national discourse. Because in social media, you see here different cases of women being abused, men being abused on account of these same issues. For me and for organization, we feel it's a pandemic. It's not just COVID. This in itself is a pandemic that needs to be dealt with. But unless and until we see it as a pandemic and the need to frontally confront it and deal with it at all levels, then perhaps we'll still have that huge gap that we need to address. So I want to encourage you all. There's still so much work to be done, with or without Resource Support Corps. Disciples of Christ were trained in 3 years. You've been trained in 2 years. So they change the whole world. So you can at least change half of Nigeria. You can change the whole of Nigeria. Yeah? So please, get down to your sleeves, get down to work and do the work. Push the message at every nook, at every corner that you have the opportunity to do so. Thank you very much once again. And Madam, thank you to you all and for your team for the beautiful work you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. You have heard from the F, the C, the D, and the O. That is the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. We now have our dear, indefatigable, wonderful woman of substance, Emma Wokowu, with some final words of wisdom from RSH. Over to you, dear team leader.
Thank you so much. I think David just gave my closing remarks speech, actually. I was kind of thinking this is exactly the areas that I was going to talk about. But great to hear from David, and he has been a huge advocate. Look, I don't want to take up too much time. I saw a comment about respecting time, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. First of all, thanks again to our RSH Nigeria Hub for all of the hard work that has gone into the last just over 2 years of work, and for raising the profile. Thanks to all those who engaged, whether it was through the mentorship, the National Expert Board, through consultancy, and thanks to everyone who's participated. I was listening earlier, I think one of the professors had said that we're breaking the culture of silence. And that is so true. And I think what we've been hearing is that everyone has come on a journey, you know, including those from the Nigeria Hub, including those of us from the Central Team. And as we kind of go out and we spread the word on safeguarding, we need to remember the journey that we've come on and how sensitive this is to speak about, and that it doesn't happen overnight. So I do want us to think about that. We have said that we're no longer alien, and so we can take the messages of safeguarding and the tools that we have and share them as widely as possible. Yeah, I would encourage everyone to go out and keep shouting about this. I mean, you know, the more that we can share with donors and with partners, and we just don't let it fall off the table. And that's what RSH has done really, really well in Nigeria doing. Between Sylvia and her communications, and Dr. Eleanor's aircraft that's taking off as we're building it. And the trainings from Oluchi and Oge, you know, all of these contribute to keeping safeguarding on the table. And so I suppose, you know, that's what I ask of everyone who's leaving this session. A huge thanks to everyone for staying on. I know it's been a long one, but I'm so happy we've managed to hear from most people in the room. And as Oluchi said, you know, we will keep in touch with you with what's coming next for RSH Nigeria, but also a reminder that the RSH team globally are still around, and we really would love to stay in touch with you. We might have, you know, we might be on different continents, but we really would love to hear from you and to hear about your successes and how you've used maybe some of the RSH tools or the trainings that you've been exposed to over the last 2 years of support from the team. So I'll wrap up there. Thank you to everyone. I hope you found it useful and engaging, and look forward to remaining in touch. Thanks very much, Dr. Eleanor.
Emma and to the entire global team, thank you very much for being the backbone, for being the support. We're glad that you're still going to be there, and we're hoping that there will be the next phase so that we can join you. Yes, Emma, it has been useful, it's been engaging, and a whole lot more. Now, our wonderful Oluchi, the National Associate of the Nigeria Hub, who's going to be wrapping up and wrapping up and wrapping up and closing.
Thank you, Dr. Eleanor, and thank you, everyone. I think for us to wrap up, let's appreciate ourselves. RSH wouldn't have successfully gone on this journey for 2 years without us. All of us made a huge impact in different ways. The NED members, strong members, the organizations, the mentors, which I was one of actually. Yeah. Yes. And the RSS team. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for the online participants who were patient enough to stay with us till this time. We don't take that for granted. Thank you all. And with that, we are all happy to bring this event to a close, right? Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, the anthem. Yes. So we have to sing that we are jolly good people.
Okay.
We are jolly good people. Okay, who's going to give us the key? Who's good at singing? Do you mind help us? What do you want to sing? People.
Respect time, thank you.
We are jolly good people. We are jolly good people. And so say all of us hooray. So say all of us hooray. For we are jolly good people. For we are jolly good people. For we are jolly good people. Hip, 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 hooray! Hip, 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 hooray! Hip, 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 hooray! And so one big clap to the team lead and all members of the RSH community, both here in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So we're going to do Atama, Labako, and Abarina. One Atama clap, Labako, 4 Abarina, 10. So let's go. Atama, Atama, Labako, Labako, Abarina. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Emma.
I don't feel like going in.
I'm telling you.